just double check that stream is live.
Yeah, can someone message Pip in the other chats to tell them to announce it?
Not in any unobvious way.
Stream is
Okay.
live, right?
Yeah, stream is live.
Cool. Stream is live, right? Okay, well, good evening.
Cool. Stream is live.
Have there been any announcements yet? Any exit polls coming out anywhere? Can someone give a quick do a quick breaking Google News search?
Yes, we have exit polls being reported by Deutsche Welle, so DW, and so we have from the top SPD with 16%, the CDU with 29%, the Greens with 13.5%, the FDP with 4.9%, which would make them not qualify.
Oh, are
for
they
the
getting
Bundestag.
in?
They might not get in. All right. Then we have the AfD with 19.5, significantly below their polling.
Still fun.
Then we have the Left Party at 8.5, very good. They basically
they
made their polling.
surged.
They surged in the last week, yeah.
Then we have the Bundeswagenknecht with 4.7, also not making it into the Bundestag if this holds. And then we have 3.9 with others, which is a whole bunch of other minor parties.
So
well, that's not too far off from what was expected.
Yeah, the latest...
Dude, my prediction's pretty good. I'm not gonna lie.
So the latest polling that was from about a week ago, saying that the left is having a resurgence, and the FDP and Rotte, pronunciation please.
The FDP?
You could just say BSW.
BSW and FDP are not going to get in seems to have held. And
so far, yeah. I mean, the FDP is very close to the threshold, so these are early exit polls. Things could still change by, like, maybe up to 1 percentage point, sometimes more. It really depends. So yeah, we can't take this to the bank yet.
Yeah, and most importantly, if they don't make, or even one of them doesn't make it, it dramatically shifts the remainder of the Bundestag. So it makes, even that 19.5 from the AfD more proportionally.
Do these exit polls include the math for how many seats this would mean for each party?
They probably do, but I had to pause it so I could talk about it, unfortunately.
Okay.
Also, Pip asks in chat why Stan outside. He's running away from the AfD. As you can see, he's quickly sprinting to the French border. Let's see if the Reuters map has had any updates.
No, I'm going to be filming reactions to the results tonight. Right now, I'm heading to a demonstration. Hopefully, there are people there, because I've tried to go to a few demonstrations in the last couple of days, and they were very small to non-existent. So let's hope it's not too underwhelming tonight, and the turnout is actually worth filming. Otherwise, I wasted a lot of time that I could have been spent editing the video that is going to come out in a few days.
Stan, for your information, Grey Knight has informed you that the Polish border is nearer, just in case you need to bail.
That is true. That is true. Because right now I would have to cross all of East Germany until I get to West Germany, and then I have to still cross that.
Yeah, you have to run away from AfD territory to CDU territory, and you're not doing very well.
Yeah. I have to cross I have to sneak through the Berlin Wall, and then sneak into GDR territory.
Oh. Actually, since we're just vamping for time, I have a question for you guys. So, do you have any opinions on essentially the debate that happened last Sunday between the four main candidates, in which essentially 3 out of 4 reaffirmed that Germany will stand with Ukraine, and Alice Weidel had a very unfortunate face, which has been appropriately memed all across the internet. Do you think that this is a good sign for any upcoming coalition, or at least the chances that people will not coalition with the AfD?
Do you want to take this one, Rhodes? I can go afterwards if you want.
I mean, I think after, Merz is not an idiot. He just watched weeks of protests, or whatever, like 10 days, 11 days, like 2 weeks of protests against him specifically. He's not an idiot. He doesn't want to make people hate him forever. He just saw another chancellor do that. So I think, Yeah, and also like the results, if they hold right now, have given him an out. He can have a government with the Greens and the SPD. No one criticizes him, and he's happy.
So we're doing another grand coalition, is what seems to be, if these are the results we're operating with.
Yeah, exactly. If these are the results and they hold, that is also what I expect. What I would say is, yeah, basically what Rota was saying, which is, I think Merz was waiting to see what the result of the election was going to be before making a final decision. Although the CDU has promised that they would definitely not enter a coalition with the AFD ever, but like we've seen other parties, other conservative parties in Europe in recent years, to not go through all of history, just in recent years, there's several conservative parties that have already reneged on such a promise. So it's not like it would have been unprecedented for the CDU to break that promise. I don't know if this result is going to warrant that, though. I think Merz was probably thinking of the possibility of, I don't know, if the AFD had won like, I don't know, 25% or something. In that case, he would have felt like he didn't really have a choice. The most striking thing to me is that basically you look at the polling for the last year since the famous AFD neo-Nazi meeting in Potsdam in what was it, November of 2023, and the AFD lost over the next few months a lot in the polls, but since then they basically regained all of the losses that they took from that meeting, and what that has resulted in is, first of all, now they fully embrace the contents of that meeting. Now they're fully saying, oh yeah, remigration, the thing that we said we had nothing to do with, we fully endorse that now. It's on our campaign posters. We say it in our speeches. We are not ashamed about that anymore. And the CDU is also leaning into that as well and have campaign posters with airplanes to signal their intentions to increase deportations. So the CDU has kind of signaled a willingness to have a policy that was closer to the AFD in a not far right way, is literally the way that they painted their policies. Like, we're gonna do all the same things, but we're not.
Oh, he's gone. They got him.
Oh, no.
The AFD
But
got
we're
him.
democratic, and I wonder how that is going to work in a coalition with the SPD. Now, Jota? Or me?
Yeah.
Did I leave or?
No, you
For a
left.
second, you lagged.
Okay.
But we
Oh,
got
sorry.
you. Just in a second.
Where was I? Okay.
No,
So
we
yeah,
managed to get the whole thing.
I wonder how that dynamic of the CDU getting closer to the AFD in recent months is going to work in a coalition, in a possible hypothetical coalition so far with the SPD and the Greens.
Okay, quick question from chat for, well, Stan on the topic. Wasn't the remigration at Potsdam put forward by the CDU/CSU? Oh no, they got him again.
No, I'm still here. I can hear you. What I might do is just turn my camera off.
Yep.
That way you can still hear me. Repeat the question.
Wasn't the remigration proposal put up by the CDU/CSU?
Yes. So there were two different proposals. There was a what they called a resolution, which was a 5-point plan that included turning away refugees at the border. I don't remember what all of the other points were. One of the points was also prevent family reunification for asylum seekers. That was passed with the votes of the AFD, and that was but that resolution is non-binding. And a couple of days later, after, like, in the middle of massive protests and after condemnations from Angela Merkel, they tried to vote on a slightly different thing that would have been binding, and that one didn't pass.
Okay. I guess the logical follow-up question is, if it looks likely that they'll end up in a grand coalition, or oh yeah, the German coalitions, as somebody pointed out in chat, have different names. Is this going to be, so this is green, red, and black? Is that what flag is this? Is it the Kenya one?
Good question. Last time it was what was it called? The
This was
traffic light coalition. Yeah,
wasn't it
I don't know what this one is going to be called.
But
Yeah,
the
it's
question,
Kenya, right? Green,
I
green,
think
yellow,
so.
black.
I don't know if that's the correct order, but I'm pretty sure it is Kenya. Also, shield in the middle. Question is, do you think that the CDU is mostly signaling to their voters, so they try to fend off AFD poaching their voters basically with these proposals, or do you think they'll try to commit to them while coalition with two parties who will all but certainly not stand for this type of results?
I think the answer is yes.
To both?
I think I think they're gonna try to thread that needle, and it's probably going to be very dissonant, because they definitely do. Like the thing is, all parties, even the ones that were like super critical of the CDU getting closer to the AFD, all parties have kind of signaled a willingness to be tougher on immigration and tougher on asylum seekers, to try to get fewer people to try to lose fewer votes to the AFD, basically, because unfortunately, the sentiment in Germany right now is that there's this huge migration crisis, this huge crime from immigrants, which is wildly blown out of proportion in right wing media. But the fact that is a perception that is working with people is a reality that parties have to deal with.
No, what do you mean right wingers overblowing immigration and making it look like it's a major problem? Not even once.
I have no idea.
They'd never have done that.
No, this is unheard of. Absolutely unheard of.
Typical leftist.
Leftist scaremongering, yes. No, what is the no? The operative word I think is alarmism nowadays. It's like every time you mention to them, "Hey guys, we might be dead soon," they're like, "You're alarmist, mate. What do you mean the ocean's rising? Sell your house to Aquaman."
Yeah, and it's the same when you're pointing out that, oh yeah, these people who are actually doing Nazi salutes on stage and not even ashamed about it anymore, maybe they're fascists. No, how dare you compare them to the Nazis, even though they're doing the same salute as the Nazis and constantly referencing the Nazis.
You know, I want to point out something. How come when it's a slip up, or I guess when it's an autism moment, why is it always Nazi? Why don't politician ever stumbles and says, "Oh, you have to lose your chains"? Why no politician ever shows up on stage and accidentally mentions that from each to their abilities to each to their needs? How is it always one of these? I'm not enough in frame to see, but don't worry guys, I'm not comfortable with full-on swinging. Should we call it doing a Bannon these days? How comes it's always Nazi ones? I don't know.
Yeah, I think the other big thing to think about is, while they tried to ignore the big conversation around defense and spending the last couple of days in the campaign and basically only focus on migration again, this is going to consume every part.
This is going to be the thing now.
Yeah, and I think the other big thing is them trying to amend the German constitution to get rid of the debt limit break, which will be a huge, massive fight, which might drag out for months, which it really can't because we need them to do it quite immediately. And yeah, it's going to be a really crazy time, and they really need to step it up on forming whatever government they do, because the Trump administration gave a 3-week deadline for this war in Ukraine stuff. So.
Oh yeah, no, lovely.
Yeah. So it's
by the way. Rota, you've been like I've been buried in my editing bubble. I've barely been keeping up with any news. I haven't been keeping up with any news outside of Germany. What's that situation like right now with the Ukraine thing? Since my last update is when Trump called Zelensky a dictator.
So Trump kind of rolled that back a little bit, but he still is complaining and saying things about Ukraine and the Ukrainian government generally, Zelensky in particular. He had a long rant at CPAC about him and basically said he likes the Russians and dealing with the Russians. He doesn't like dealing with the Ukrainians. It's very Trump.
What an
stupid.
Amazing reason to make a geopolitical stance. I like this guy more.
Yeah, I know. That's where we're at. And also, like, just for the audience to remember, Donald Trump is doing this because he does not like Zelensky, because Zelensky would not give him dirt about Hunter Biden, as in Joe Biden's son. And that is why Trump was impeached the first time. Yes, timeline. It's that stupid. It's painfully stupid. It hurts.
That is one of the stupid things, but the other one that's crazy to me is the demand that he made to Ukraine that was like, hey, if you want us to take a stronger side in support of Ukraine in these negotiations, you need to give us your rare earth minerals, which is just like straight up protection money. It's crazy how like mafia like this is.
It's not even.
It's actually a little worse than even my video put out. So like I saw a deeper reading on this yesterday on, I don't know, Ference 24 or something. And so the actual lineage is that it also includes all Ukrainian infrastructure and state resources as well, and all contracts thereof. It's effectively allows the U.S. to own, like the U.S. federal government to own Ukraine.
Hey, would you like to not be owned by Russia? How about you be owned by us?
Yeah, and what I really think like the way to wrap our heads around this is it's like a North Korea South Korea partition. Like it's like that kind of like immediate post-war level partitions. And it's surreal because it mixes this very brutal like 19th century style capitalist approach where, especially like for places like Japan or whatever, where they rolled up with gunships and they were like, we own your shit now.
Okay, Tryon.
Yes.
I'm gonna mute my microphone because there's going to be music and crowds and stuff like that. But I'm going to be filming the crowd if you want to put my screen in full screen when I do that.
Okay, yeah, no problem.
Okay, let me do.
We have Sideways Stan. He's barely level. Can we put him full screen? Alright. So yeah, no.
If we all stand sideways, we can do it together.
Let me just shift gravity in my apartment.
Wait, am I still sideways? I should be good now.
No, you're perfectly fine.
Okay, cool.
Is that I would never miss an opportunity to riff on something stupid in these times.
Ooh, I think we have a seat breakdown. Awesome, cool. That was good timing.
Oh, do we have it? Can you send me a link so I can put it up on stream?
Yes. Let me just. I'm gonna dump it into the chat.
Okay, sounds good.
All right.
All right. This is. No, that's not what I wanted to click.
You know, it could have been way worse. This I feel is like one of the better scenarios that happened.
So 630, which means we need 315 for a government, right?
Yeah.
Well, CDU, SDP have that already.
Oh yeah, right there. That's Grand Coalition, baby.
And to my understanding, as a general rule, in Germany,
with 17
it's preferred
seats
that
to
you.
spare. Yeah.
It's preferred in Germany to have a 2/3 party coalition, right? Those are considered more stable.
Well, technically, all Grand Coalitions are 3-party coalitions because the CDU is 2 parties. It's the regular CDU and then the psychos from
the Bavarian.
No offense to Bavarians, but you
no,
know
a lot of offense to Bavarians. What is wrong with you? Okay, well, this is from Deutsche Welle.
There's like 5 communists left in Bavaria from the time they tried to form a Soviet, and ever since that failed, it's been a dark right-wing place.
Yeah, ever since they got Rosa Luxemburg, Bavaria has gone downhill.
I hope people appreciate these Bavarian deep cuts.
Ricardo in chat says that the CSU is a Bavarian DEI party. And it is!
Affirmative action for Bavarians.
I believe, I believe that's called the Vienna, what's the treaties post-Napoleon, what are those called? There was some affirmative actions for Bavarian days. Yeah, I have some deep cuts too. But no, this is looking... What is the SSW? What are the homies with one guy in?
Okay, let me look.
Actually, this looks pretty good. First of all...
The South Schleswig Voters Association. So
the one Danish brother is in there.
They represent Danish and Frisian minorities, right?
I took my camera off, so you can take me out of full screen if you hadn't done it yet.
We are currently looking at the Deutsche Welle seat allocation for the Bundestag, so you will be on screen in a bit. But no, opinions, Rote.
I kind of goes along with what I said yesterday in my pre-election video, where I was saying that the takeaway is the left isn't dead in Germany, and everyone ended up doing much better than we thought a month ago. Like, if you, me, and Stan were chatting a month ago, we definitely would have been dooming about this much more.
I was quite dooming, but like, yeah, you're right.
I mean, the AfD thing sucks. Like, yes, they're doing the best ever. Like, that's.
I mean, I think especially after the U.S. election.
Yeah, like we all,
Especially at the U.S. election, it was easy to go like, yeah, things are going to be worse than the polls, like they always are.
Oh,
but
people in chat said the SSW's party represents minorities, so legally they have to be in parliament. So the one Danish brother got in there as a DEI hire. Cheers to him. And
we
please.
support DEI on the stream.
Yes, we do.
Strong DEI support here.
Uh,
But yeah, this is way better than I thought it would be, and I think there's probably big celebrations in Green HQ right now. They came back from the dead. Some of the polls like a couple of months ago were like they wouldn't make parliament. They were looking at terminal stuff, and then people came back in a big way. And I'm honestly shocked like how much support Linka got. And I really want to stress the importance of all those new party members in the Greens, in Linka, in SPD. Like, do something with that membership. Like, you see there's energy for this, so, like, just keep pushing. That's how the AfD did so well. They just kept pushing for years and years and years.
This is actually interesting when you do the math. The left/center left parties, so SDP, Greens, and the Linke, combined they have around 270 seats. If again these are the final results, which means that there is a legit chance, if they do a proper push for the next election, that there might be a left-ish government in Germany. Now, of course,
remind me what the seat threshold is for a government.
315.
Okay.
Because this is not a well-informed opinion, and again we'll have to defer to Rote, but I have noticed that most of the swing vote is between the SDP and the CDU. It seems that the center either votes for one or the other.
Yeah.
So if the SDP manages to get some support, if whatever happens now happens, but we don't know where this is going these days.
I mean, I think we saw a couple of things. We saw Merz took a hit from his actions with the AfD. He was above 30% for a lot of the time, and he didn't get there. We saw that hardcore, and I guarantee when we see those voter breakdowns, it's going to be like hardcore retirees keeping that SPD voter afloat. But also, it seems they have like a hardcore base at this 15% mark, which is also probably like good for them to know. But yeah,
I mean,
this is way better than I thought for all these left parties.
To be honest, I'm kind of shocked at how little Merz took a hit compared to the size of the protests against their working with the AfD.
There's more voters in here, you can see, because like he didn't take that much of a percentage down, which means there's just more vote out there, because that's why the numbers shifted so much.
It seems that indeed the numbers move, if again it is a result based on what I was looking at yesterday. It seems that this is more of a case people who weren't going to vote voted rather than his base abandoned him. After all, we all have to face the fact that there is a significant population in pretty much all European countries who, if not are not willing to dabble with fascism, are at the very least willing to take some fascism light. And yeah, not a lot you can do about
That's exactly the impression that I got from the rise of the Linke. Is like I was starting to see the rise of the Linke in the polls, and I was like, wait, no one else is going down. Where are these voters coming from? And I guess most of them were just people who weren't planning to vote, who decided to vote specifically as a result of the CDU AfD thing.
Yeah, and if we think of this from like the change in here, right? So CDU is only up 4.9 on one of their worst election turnouts ever from the last time, but their highest ever was like, you know, mid to high 30s, right? So this isn't that good of a comeback for them. It's good, like they're first, that's great for them, but it isn't them getting back to like Merkel numbers. And you know, we see that there's voters who are willing to start voting if they feel like there's something to vote for, and that's a big deal. But I'm willing to bet again, the AfD strategy, and they've been doing it like all the other far-right parties, they're going after non-voters. That's where they've gotten this 9% from. They're not converting people, they're getting people non-voting to voting. And so it's really important to understand, like, that is where all of the energy needs to be put in, getting non-voters to vote. This is the untraditional way of campaigning, but this is the future. And we're seeing this now from rejection of the actions of Merz and the AfD stuff, boosting up the left, and then on the other side we're seeing the far right using it as their hardcore electoral strategy to do very well in places. Trump used it, the FPÖ in Austria used it, the AfD used it. This is the strategy.
Okay.
Yeah, I also think something that is extremely funny if you look at the poll tracking for the last like 5 years is the SPD literally managed to surge in the polls for like 3 days just on the day of the last election, and then they immediately dipped back into second. It was like such a quick surge in the polls that lasted basically less than a week in total, and it was like perfectly timed for them to be the top party in the last election. But the SPD is almost never on top, which is why it's so funny to look at that election tracker graph and like the dates of the election. You're like, oh, that was like the 1 week where they were actually first.
Yeah, so you're already answering the question in chat, Rote, but I'm gonna bring this up. Ricardo is asking, what do you think the odds of Merz making a coalition with the AFD are? And I guess both of you might as well have a go.
Go for it, Stan.
Merz with the AFD.
Yeah.
I think we talked about this, but maybe it was too early in stream and people hadn't joined yet. I think with the exit polls as they are, if these results hold, I don't think this would be enough of a showing by the AfD to justify Merz completely breaking the promise of making a coalition with them. I think that would have been a possibility if the AfD had like demolished expectations. But in the current, as the exit polls are, I don't think that's going to be on the cards for this election, for this government.
This is where I land too, especially it seems that the SDP would have enough votes by themselves to form a coalition with the CDU and form a government. So there would be no reason for Merz to work with AFD, despite the fact that they're the second in votes. They are still considered like a sort of don't touch this party. Especially, I would say that as much as as Stan called him VP of Fascism, JD Vance had his old screechy witchy at the Munich conference saying, "We don't need a firewall." I don't want to introduce you to what an institution without a firewall looks like. But do not trust your data to anybody without a firewall. But my point is that I would say that further reinforced the need for such firewalls. That, as a matter of fact, I feel like a lot of pro-EU parties would now be even less willing to work with fascism if the DEI hire at the White House is coming up and being like, "You work with the fascists, ooh." Like, yeah, okay, noted. We are not going to do that. Thank you for the heads up. This is... I don't want to go into a rant, but frankly speaking, if you guys pay attention for the Trump administration for the past like 3 weeks, they're telling you what to do by telling you to do the opposite for a while now. It is spelled out in gigantic letters. We want to go isolationist, we want to be fascist, and fuck you. And okay, noted. So yeah, I think there is but the chances all but no existent. But I will slightly spoil the mood. On the Reuters map, they have a second polling company that has the results with the BSW and FDP both managing to get 5%. So if the other polling company, people on stream can see it. I'm just going to leave the link in Discord for you guys to see. If that result holds and that ends up being the result in BSW and SDP, not SDP, FDP managed to get in, that would be majorly altering the situation, I think.
But I think they can form the same. I think they can still do the Graco because it. Remember, there's also like preferences. So,
yeah.
I think like as you can see, the SPD jumps up the exact amount the CDU goes down. So I think probably seat-wise, it probably benefits the SPD higher to get that 0.5%.
At least percentage-wise, the Kenyan coalition still works in this scenario.
And my take on this is I agree with both of you. I think the CDU needed to be plus 30 or plus, and they also need the AfD to be 22 plus, and that would give them a lot of seats and a big wiggle room in that coalition. And also, more importantly, the last 3 weeks of intense backlash to Friedrich Merz floating the idea of working with the AfD and then actually working with the AfD did not work in the way he wanted. His testing of the waters of the even concept of it led to a major public blowback, and that is not good.
if their results had been that good despite the backlash and the protests from the last weeks, that would have been such a good weapon for them to basically dismiss any anti-AFD protests in the future, saying, "Hey, look, the protests are loud, they're visible, they make a lot of noise, but they don't matter in the end because when the votes come in, the German people don't want this." And right now, yes, it's still CDU, AfD positions 1 and 2, which is bad. Which is like AfD being second biggest party in the country is something that just 5 years ago, just 3 years ago, I was talking to Germans, like to German political journalists, and they were like, "Nah, that's never gonna happen." And we're here now. So even though this is maybe a slightly disappointing result for the AfD compared to what they were hoping for in the polls, it's still bad. Like there's not much to celebrate about this result right now.
Yeah, I think also. Oh, sorry,
Go,
just
go,
to
go,
add
go,
on
go,
to
go.
just to add on to that. it- Their plan, Alice Weidel, is public in stating they did not expect to enter government until the year 2029. So they are on track this election cycle with what they hoped to get. They really hope to reach this position of number 2, which means the next election they can fight for number 1. And I
Yeah.
think we always have to remember the far right, even though it seems constantly chaotic, because it is also meticulous in the bigger plan, the ultimate victory, the one victory for
The master plan, if
because
you will.
they only need one election to win because they don't plan to have another election. Like that's a really critical part of the far right. They only need the one.
No, the Donald saying that if I win now, you won't have to vote again. And it was yesterday when he said that him and the Attorney General decide what the laws are. That was
Dude, like that I saw that at like 1 or 2 in the morning and I was just like, I gotta go to sleep now. Like I feel like my brain's gonna fucking fry. Like I see so many people saying something along the lines of like, I need to burn my political science degree because it means nothing, and it's just about the petulance of a toddler.
I'll be honest, I have no way to internalize that statement because this is one of those things that is so not true. It is so fundamentally incorrect. I don't even know how to approach this thing. Like, I mean, I guess you and the thing is, the person in charge is saying this. He is not a random. Like, if random homie in Nebraska goes and say this, we don't care. But it's the orange. It's the biggest of oranges. It's orange in charge that's saying this. And it's like, yeah, I could tell you that this is fascism. I don't feel the need to though, because at this point, what is there to discuss? What
At
is
this
there
point,
to
he's
address?
telling you that it's fascism.
Yeah, he's been very clear about this. I don't see confusion here.
Yeah, like I saw, I don't know if you guys follow Adam something on YouTube, but he did one of his posts and he's just like, yeah, Bannon did a Zig Heil, and then he did another, and then another, and then a fourth one. And I was like, what? This is so much worse than I thought when I just saw the one time.
Ricardo saying in
Yeah,
chat
it's being fully normalized. Yeah.
there is the reason applied to move out of Texas and move north to Minnesota. I don't want to bother you, Ricardo. That might be not north enough. Like, you might need to go norther. Well, depends if the U.S. Army decides to go norther. That is a situation we are not able to address at this time.
According
Alaska,
to Donald
maybe.
Trump, you need a big, beautiful ocean between you and America.
According to me, I need big, beautiful vacuum of space between me and Donald Trump. Can we arrange that? I'm willing to pay.
Ask Elon Musk. I think he has a rocket company.
Why is the man without the camera dropping the bangers on the street?
What? Why is the man without the camera? What?
Dropping the bangers. What you didn't see is both me and Rotta slumping in our chairs from that one. Okay.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, no, can we convince
I mean,
Elon to...
no joke. Did you see that Elon Musk is going to be pressuring Boeing to make a new Air Force One plane faster?
I saw that. I love that. Now, everybody
Yes.
on stream.
Wait, no. We support this.
Yes, that's the thing. Everybody on stream. Do not say a fucking
critical
word.
support for Boeing. Critical support for Boeing.
That's it. Boeing do not need to be regulated. We have no reason to worry about this plane, and they should make it tomorrow if possible. Send them duct
And
tape.
the FAA. They should make it tomorrow and it can take off as soon as possible.
Who needs flight traffic controllers? Send them the duct tape. It would be flying in a bit. Oh, Stan. Somebody very German is talking from over there.
Yeah, sorry. Is it too loud? Is it bothering the? Is it a problem for for stream audio?
Chat, can you guys hear the German person with probably a megaphone talking behind Stan? But yes, I would like to report that people in chat are agreeing we need Air Force ready as fast as possible. So,
to answer the question in chat around Dolinka and their Ukraine position, I pulled it up yesterday, but basically they support what is being described as a quote-unquote just peace. And the difference between this, a regular peace, which is what Trump and Putin are pitching, and what Dolinka and actually a lot of the European leaders are pitching, is that a just peace involves Ukraine having all of its territorial integrity, and a non-just peace involves the partition plan that Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin are trying to do. The big downside of Linka's position is they do not support further weapons funding for Ukraine. And this is why I personally would have not voted for them in this particular election. Not general against them in the big picture. This is a major issue. And so I think this is one area they really need to move on, and I hope they move on, especially in this world of the Donald Trump-Putin bromance, which is, God, such a dumb timeline.
Yeah, by the way, if anybody in chat is up for writing fan fiction, please go wild. I'm not gonna read it, I'm just gonna ship it to the Library of Congress. I want that in there.
Eastern Europeans know this. There is a big market in Russia for homoerotic isekai novels. Huge. I'm very much not joking about this.
No, he, as the person who is A, of Russian heritage and B, speaks Russian, he's not at all joking about this. For some reason, let's call it gay romantics have been a thing in Russia for like 130 years.
There is probably at least 1,000 Stalin isekai novels, and I am being very serious and conservative about that number.
My favorite one is that I once accidentally ran into a Nikita Khrushchev and Laverty Beria as a guy. I was like, first of all, these people did not live at the same time, but holy shit. Yeah, that is the appropriate reaction to this. I did not read it, I just had a moment to think about what I had just witnessed. By the way, I found that in a library, just in case any of you wants to visit the Sofia City Library for any reason. It's in there, I've made sure it's in there.
You know, sometimes ending censorship in a society, it makes things a bit weird. Just a little bit.
Oh yeah! So look, it might not have been
Ukraine,
Khrushchev.
We got stalker. In Russia, we got homoerotic isekai novels. Different strokes.
Hey, different approach to the situation. I just wanted to address something. As somebody said that you were talking about the difference between the just peace and just peace that the Donald is proposing. I want to point out that the Donald's peace plan would not result in peace. Like, it might result in like a 3 months detente. But A, the border they're currently pitching is completely indefensible. Like, for any side, as a matter of fact. You're just in, like, about 60% of the current, like, where the front line is fields. One of the reasons Ukraine is not doing a very good job at holding the line at the moment is because you're wildly in the open, and there is barely anything to hold down a defensive position on. And if you know anything about modern warfare, we are no longer digging trenches, we are holding positions based on choke points and supply depots. And they're not in a position to do that because they're in the fields. This is why, if any of you has the morbid curiosity I do and wants to watch footage, there have been Russian almost man-wave attacks in civilian cars that, while costly, are working because the Ukrainians are also holding an empty piece of land that is just a field. That is not really a defensible position. So that is the first thing that wouldn't incentivize peace. And the second thing is, when two countries go to war, for there to be lasting peace, there has to be a guarantee that you wouldn't just immediately go to war again. And with the current peace deal, there isn't one. Because nothing is stopping Russia from having a round 2 in a few months. There isn't anything to prevent them from that. This is why this is so similar to appeasement. Oh, Hitler, have the Sudetenland. Pinky promised not to invade Czechoslovakia. Why is there no more Czechoslovakia? And this is the type of deal we're dealing with here. Also, the Ukrainians have no reason to settle down with this. As a matter of fact, one of the problems the Ukrainians have been having for the last 6 to 8 months is that they've had desertions, mostly because essentially the Ukrainian army is forced to mass slaughter a bunch of Russians who are bum rushing them in indefensible situations while losing. So now you're mass murdering people while not achieving your goal, while watching your allies falter. That is a major hit to morale on all sides. If you force them to draw this border, that would immediately revitalize a serious portion of the population to go and fight. So neither side this is not a lasting peace. I do, even if this
Russians and North Koreans, I would add. Slaughtering Russians and North Koreans that are bum rushing their border.
I have so much like unconfirmed funny shit about the North Koreans that I'm not really willing to talk about because I haven't been able to confirm any of it. The only thing they've been able to confirm is that some North Koreans have discovered the internet and immediately fallen for porn, and although that is...
Oh, I feel like that was confirmed quite a couple
that
of
was
months ago.
confirmed months ago, but I want to point out that this is where my ability to confirm stuff on what the North Koreans are doing in that war is ended. We know of like 3 North Koreans that have surrendered / defected for now, and the only reason we know for that is because the South Korean government is trying to basically reclaim them.
Yeah, I think that's something else to also add to the why like it wouldn't be an actual peace. We really underestimate how much the Russian economy has been geared for intense military production. And one of the main reasons that the Russian Federation has not been able to do any major breakthroughs in basically months and months at this point is because they have a major bottleneck on production for large amounts of heavy military equipment. And to do combined arm assaults, you need a lot of equipment that you are expecting a large amount of it to get blown up. So you always have to be producing a crazy amount of stuff to be able to do any of your big maneuvers. And what Russia really needs right now, especially because it effectively has an artificial economy running. It's running very hot. It only brings in foreign income from a lot of companies breaking sanctions. And also, there are illegal oil sales now. And 3 months or 6 months of them able to get a ton of money flooding back into Russia will allow them to buy all the components that they can't buy normally right now, and also to build up stuff in that time period to re-invade. And this is the major part that's scaring people, is like they realize that actually like a pause, especially because on the Ukrainian side, like several things would happen. Like soldiers would start being demobilized. Their constitution requires them to have a constitution once there's no more martial law. Like this would also probably result in Russia spending a ridiculous amount of money trying to get their candidate elected. So you could end up with just two broken Ukraines that are both puppet states, and this would be an even bigger mess. And the front line is the longest line possible at this particular moment in time. So it would, it would create a situation where the European Union would be the guarantor of this peace, would be in the weakest position to defend itself, and probably at any point in time face a subsequent invasion. And this would only continue to escalate. And we have to remember, we are currently in a trade war with the United States. Like, they keep hitting us with sanctions.
Oh yeah, that started last week.
Yeah, like I guarantee tomorrow we will see, because there will be a tantrum by J.D. Vance or Elon Musk that the AfD didn't do as well as they wanted, and we will have announcements like was signaled a couple of days ago with the meeting with Pete Hegseth in Kiev with Zelensky, that the U.S. will pull some of these military bases, and this will create regional economic shocks at the beginning of the government formation. So like there are levels of petty and stupid things they can do to continue hitting Europe. And we have to remember there are more elections coming up across the Union, and this is something that won't end.
I have a very interesting fact for you. According to NATO standard procedures, and let's be honest, standard procedures are kind of out the gate by now. But if a NATO country decides to remove its troops from a base, it is obligated for this year after that to leave their equipment behind for whoever comes in to take the base to not be without equipment. There is a chance if the Americans start threatening to leave, European countries start forcing them to leave their equipment behind. or demanding it. So I'm not so sure how keen on the tantrum they would be, as there are F-35s in Germany, and F-35s are closely guarded as far as the secret goes. Let me give it to you all. If EU militaries get their hands on an F-35, the stock price of Rheinmetall is about to hit the fucking roof. Because, well, we are mostly flying Eurojets and bot planes, and at the moment those are the premier weapons of war. So, I don't know. A question from chat: is there any chance the US starts to build up its own military, and are we still going to be at the mercy of the USA or Russia? It's already happening. I don't know if you guys understand to what degree it's already happening. From the new EU budget, like the one that was announced in February, early February, got reworked. So much of it is military spending. Like, I work with people in NGOs who had half of their budgets gone because it suddenly went to, we are now building tanks. If you check the stock price of Rheinmetall, it is 3 times the stock price of Raytheon because it got announced that they have received orders for so much weapons. The Bulgarian arms manufacturer Arsenal is planning to quadruple its output by the end of this year.
Yeah, things like, to give you an understanding, the EU is going to need to do 10 years worth of military buildup in about 12 to 24 months. This will be faster than the USSR and the US in World War II during some of the greatest, craziest like military buildup ever. And not only that, we have to bootstrap a ton of technology for ourselves because we co-developed a lot of things with the US, and that means the US has restrictions on usage of those weapons, including the F-35s. And if you're not into like really nerdy Militech stuff, so there are like different generations of fighters, and the F-35s are 6th generation fighters, and the one that is created in Europe is a 4th generation fighter. So imagine comparing your modern PS5 to your PS1.
By the way, Stan, just in case you don't know, I have put you up on stream, so you can show us the demonstration.
Yeah, I can quickly do another round around this demo, but after this I'm gonna switch to go to a different demonstration at the FDP headquarters. I just realized something that's actually kind of funny. Wait, let me switch the camera around. Sorry for the audio with the speeches, but yeah, so the CVU headquarters is the bright spot in the background over there. This is the anti-CDU demonstration, and right over the demonstration there is an AFD campaign poster.
Kann sich eine Abtreibung unter Umständen nicht leisten, auch wenn der Eingriff nicht erstattet wird.
One more thing I wanted to, while we look at demonstration, I want to address about the military build-up. It's interesting that, as I mentioned, the Bulgarian arms producer Arsenal is quadrupling its output. For those of you who don't know, the Bulgarian arms producer makes Kalashnikovs, specifically NATO-compatible Kalashnikovs. And it's interesting that that's the thing they're mostly increasing the output in, because these type of weapons are usually used by Eastern European armies who are now in NATO. And for those of you who are putting this together, Poland has its own production, and the Czechs also do. It's almost the Slovaks, the Romanians, the Ukrainians who buy Bulgarian Kalashnikovs. Well, and terrorist organizations, but we don't worry about those at the moment. So it is strange. It feels to me that we're doing a very weird build-up, where if I have to make a wild guess, the plan is give weapons to Ukraine, then have Ukrainians come back and train EU soldiers. That seems to be the outline of the plan, but I can't confirm anything.
I mean, let's be honest here, Ukrainians at this point, Ukrainian soldiers are the most experienced soldiers in Europe right now.
Probably in the world.
They might be the most experienced soldiers in the world in the modern day warfare, in what warfare will look for the next 10 to 15 years.
When it comes to like the use of drone technology to take out tanks and like hyper modern warfare with like super new technology like that, possibly, yeah, I think you have a point there.
Yeah.
What was I gonna say? Yeah, I wanted to ask about that NATO compatible Kalashnikovs. You mean the 5.56 ammunition in a Kalashnikov?
It's not just the ammunition. Kalashnikovs tend to shoot way further than standard NATO A weapon rounds. So it's mostly the ammunition, but also it's made to shoot from 100 to 160 meters than the standard 2 to 250. While a standard M4 shoots from 60 to 100. For also if you didn't know. Kalashnikovs are not made to be used at close range. Oh, he's gone. Nah, they have definitely got him this time. Alright, well,
Yeah.
I'm sorry guys, but you have to survive without a camera from me for the next about minute or so.
Oh, no stress, no stress. So let's see what's going on in the chat. Is there any chance that the EU starts to build up? Got that one. Requires them to pull action. Yeah, I mean, I think this conversation around a EU military or even just the national buildups is difficult. And it also is very hard, I think, for a lot of leftists to wrap their head around, because a lot of people, think of themselves as pacifists and don't want to be agitating for militarism. But it's also very important to remember that we did not choose this fight. If anything, Europe has been expressly against any sort of military buildup. That's why we're kind of in the bad situation we are in. And that, we live in a different world and we don't get to choose this situation that we're in. We only can choose to react to what is being presented to us. So we cannot be naive about it, and we have to understand that to be safe, to make democracy exist, we have to fight back against those great powers that wish to make it no longer exist.
I want to address something the one before the last comment in chat. Do you abandon agriculture, energy, military in favor of Russian or Chinese solar wind turbines and American military? Latin America agriculture, we're behind on everything 15 plus years. You have no idea how wrong you are on this statement. Europe is doing a very interesting thing where, yes, in certain fields we are behind because we don't tend to develop our own stuff, but in others we are way ahead of expected. One of the things I brought up to Stan, and is why my personal tinfoil, I don't have any tinfoil to put on my head, but okay, cat on head, there you go. This is my equivalent of a tinfoil hat. Hi, cat. One of the things that I'm pretty sure is the reason Elon is so miffed about the EU right now is that the EU finalized plans for something called Magellan, and after that it's now launching a project called IRIS-2. Magellan is in practice a European GPS. It is just GPS for us for free from the government. Hey, I have it. Based entirely on new satellites that are not in any way dependent on anything else. And IRIS-2 is SpaceX but better for you if you're a European citizen paid for by your taxes, which is why I'm pretty sure that Elon threw a hissy fit, because the plan is by 2031 to switch these systems entirely to EU-owned, EU-operated systems, where we would no longer be depending for maps and movement on Google, and essentially, I forgot what the SpaceX internet thing is called. What a stupid thing to forget at the moment. But the plan is to use this IRIS-2 to have internet coverage all across the EU, no matter where you are, in the ruralest of rural areas. Not for free, but if the plans are what they are at the moment, the price is going to be like something like 50 euros a month for you to get internet anywhere in the EU. And of course, Elon's having a hissy fit. When it comes to agriculture, our agriculture does not output the most basicest of products. But when it comes to productions of, luxury goods is the phrase that exists in my mind, because that's what the classification was during commie times. Don't you love the effects of communism on your language? Watermelons, basically. Most of your agriculture is based around things that you would buy, but they're not bread, is what I'm trying to say. So,
and also, some of the countries are like crazy on agricultural output. Like the Netherlands, I think, is the second or third largest in the world. It's like something absurd.
Very interesting methods. I would like to remind everybody Bulgaria is the fourth biggest grain exporter on the planet. Mostly because we just have a very good soil for this. And we almost exclusively export to other EU countries. It's not actually considered an export in our budget because it stays in the EU. So if your worry is that we are so behind that we are screwed, not entirely, but there would have to be changes. There would be a period of uncomfortable growing pains for about 3 to 5 years, maybe, where all these industries are retooled to become self-sufficient, if this is the path that the EU is going to take. But we are not completely screwed. There is still a version where we're fine. Another thing everybody like thinks about, we are unlikely to end up at war with the US. Like, yes, the possibility exists, and in that case, I'm shitting my pants. Like, I don't know what to do in case the US decides to invade us. We just give them Greenland? I don't know. I don't see a feasibility where we defend Greenland from the US. But in comparison to Russia, oh man, Russia so doesn't stand a chance. It's not even funny. Rotte talked about their economy. One thing that doesn't get brought up a lot, but I've noticed, the Russian economy is not entirely in a position to demilitarize at the moment. A lot of Russian people rely on their raised salaries to combat the inflation they're facing. But those salaries are raised because the government is pushing military contracts, and that is artificially, like, their economy is so fake. This is, like, by the way, the proof that capitalism doesn't work. The Russians are basically doing planned economy again. And yeah, it's not good, but they should have collapsed 3 years ago, and they haven't. But they can't really stand up to a military conflict with somebody with a functioning state.
I mean, we're seeing capitalism all over the world reaching a breaking point, while the countries that are growing the most at the moment are like state capitalist countries like China, which is like basically this weird mix of communism and capitalism. Yeah.
But by the way, I was thinking if I should bring this up on stream, but in the last 2 weeks, China has been taking a not exactly pro-Ukraine, but more Ukraine-favored stance on international politics. And I'm kind of confused why, because China is essentially the person funding Russia. If China pulls its financial, essentially, support for Russia, they're done. It's over. Russia is reduced to a gas station with rockets. So my question is do you think it's ideological, or what exactly is happening here?
I think there's opportunities with the European Union, with the American detachment, and China sees an opportunity. So why not roll the dice? I mean, China's been very good at playing all the angles all the time, so why not play this one?
It does appear that China is the biggest geopolitical winner of the current situation.
I mean, also their economy is super hot too right now because of the bubble over real estate. Because for some reason, Chinese elites thought they could to repeat 2008 financial crisis, but you know, bigger and better, and it wouldn't blow up.
But the thing is, they keep pushing this disaster back. Like, it's been 7 years since this bubble. Like, if I don't remember the name of the company, but it was 2018 when one of the biggest, if not the biggest, real estate developer in China essentially defaulted. They just stopped being able to pay. And yet that didn't collapse. The Chinese government just sort of stepped in and pushed disaster aside. And they've been doing this for, 8 years now. They're just preventing it in a very weird way, where properties keep growing in price. Less and less people can afford them, but yet people find a way to afford them. And more is being built, while things built 10 years ago are collapsing. And it's some weird magical circle that I'll be honest with you guys, China confuses me. I have not enough information or frankly the intelligence to understand how and what all of this is occurring. And yeah. Also, I wanted to bring up another thing on the person who mentioned agriculture, especially in Europe. I would politely have to remind you that Africa exists. And I know it's usual for people with our skin color to forget about that. But a lot, like for example, one of the biggest things, meat in Bulgaria is relatively high quality due to regulations and law. A lot of the meat produced in Bulgaria is being exported to other EU countries, and then we simply import from sub-Saharan Africa. And it's fine, and there is no practical incentive for any trade deals and negotiations with African countries to end for Europe, especially now. Also, polite reminder, France is still definitely doing a bit of a colonism in Western Sub-Saharan Africa. If the EU sovereignty becomes in question, yes, I'm sorry, those countries, Africa, you're probably getting fucked, but resources from there can be drawn to plug the gap. It's just you
Yeah,
know, the morals of the situation are not good.
I'm definitely not an expert on African politics, but the one thing to keep an eye on from recent trends is when you mentioned France doing a colonialism in Western Sub-Saharan Africa, is the fact that all of those countries are trying to get France the fuck out of their country, and partly, I believe I would have to double check this, but I believe the Wagner Group and well, the Wagner Group doesn't officially exist anymore, but Russia-affiliated groups have some kind of a hand in there and stand to gain from France opting out of that part of Africa.
Yeah, I did a video on this a few days ago actually, and the various Wagner spin-off groups, Africa Corps, there's a ton of them now. They are operating in different countries, and basically, there's a kind of little bit of background to this. So, like, even
Okay, sorry.
earlier...
Can I interrupt you for a second? People in chat are saying they have some slight sound skips. Is it just when Stan is talking, or is it when everybody else is talking?
Probably my fault.
Well, this is what we are trying to gauge at the moment. So...
we have some updated numbers.
Oh, we do?
I'm checking.
Oh, okay. Let's also have a quick... Okay, so it seems that the sound skip stopped. It was probably Stan's connection for a bit. But please, go
Yeah,
ahead.
my phone actually crashed twice earlier, so good thing the stream is not being run from my phone today.
I will be charging you later. Anyway, Rotte, please, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's important to understand, like, the French pull-out of Africa started quite a while ago, almost like a decade, and this has a lot more to do with France kind of just not being able to run security for a whole bunch of countries with their military, and this again kind of like goes back to lack of military spending, and this has a lot to do with other things. But when France leaves a country, that does not mean the country is free. They just find a new patron because the government needs a power to come in to do literally security. And one of the main reasons these countries, and I'm not talking about the people, we're talking about specifically the elites who run the country, the reasons they were very annoyed with France on top of, like, you know, economic concerns, was they were not willing to go and kill a bunch of people in the countryside and rebel groups and do all these things on the level that the Russian paramilitary corporations run by the Ministry of Defense in Russia were willing to do.
Oh.
And this is a hard reality that people have to wrap their heads around. If we want security and safety in a lot of kind of countries where instability is normal, that requires another country to come in and provide that with military support. And this is a big problem because right now the country that is saying, hey, I'm your buddy, I can send those guys, is Russia. And they're actively activating in all parts of Africa. And what they get in return is very much old school style colonial concessions. A diamond mine, a gold mine, a military base, a naval base. And this is how things are operating. And as France continues to pull out, the Russian Federation steps a bit more in. And this is the back and forth.
Yeah, that's one of the frustrating things about discussing this kind of like international geopolitics, especially in places like Africa, is that obviously you hear like France involvement in Africa, and you're like, oh yeah, classic colonialism, and obviously there's some concerns about that to have. The problem is whether it's like all the criticisms we can have about U.S. foreign policy or French foreign policy or British foreign policy and the history that goes with those countries. That doesn't necessarily mean that the alternative is better. Like, you can say, yeah, those things were bad, but that doesn't mean that, you know, Russia stepping into to take a more prominent role, or China coming in to basically scam a lot of these countries with like loans that they're going to have to pay for a huge amount of time, or like give off concessions to like ports that they no longer are able to control as their own countries. That is not going to be great in terms of like the history, like you know, 50 years down the line, 100 years down the line, when we look at the colonial history of what China is doing right now. Is it going to look like, I don't know, the East Asia trade company? What was the Dutch thing called? The Dutch East India Company? it's not probably not going to be that bad, but it's not like it's going to be that much better than what France is doing, what the U.S. is doing right now.
Yeah, I think it's a bit different. So like on this Donald Trump thing we see out of Ukraine, we see a state doing this on a state level, and they want to have a colonial concession from one government to another. And that is very much more in the 19th century, like mid to late 19th century style of colonialism. That earlier level of colonialism where you had a colonial company running it, that's more in line with what's going on with these various PMCs, these Wagner Group spin-offs. And these are two competing models of colonialism. They get you to the same location, but one is just done on the state level and one is done as a semi-detached entity.
Oh.
But you know, they're still ultimately get you to the same thing, which is various levels of colonial conquest. And then, like, the problem is also, like, the reason why groups like Wagner are very much liked even by a lot of the population is they do bring stability in very, very dangerous situations. But what happens also is they take control of the country, and then they're also doing a whole bunch of war crimes and abusing the population at the same time. And the reason they're so well liked is also because they're running massive propaganda operations to get people to like them, to the extent that oh man, I can't remember the country, but basically they made a movie about like the country's president funded by the Wagner Group, and it won a ton of awards, like the equivalent of that country's Academy Awards. And like, of course people are gonna have a positive opinion if you're making like non-stop propaganda. They were running, like, for example, television, radio stations in addition to providing security. So like this is like way more on top of what we would even like imagine what our fantasy version of like kind of European neocolonialism is. This is like on a step above all of that.
By the way,
And it's kind of
that is
Yeah, go ahead.
happening as for about 2 weeks now. Rwanda is invading Congo. That's just. It's not in the news, but it's happening. They captured the capital cities yesterday, but yeah, good times. Like, by the way, 10 years ago, this would have been every headline. The Rwanda-Congo war. What are we going to do? How are we going to stop it? Who's going to send troops? We are so deep into 19th century imperial blocks now that everybody is down to protect themselves and the pushes on themselves. We've completely abandoned the continent we ruined. Like, sure, I do not have a Zimbabwean like stolen gold in my house, but even as a Bulgarian, I have benefited from colonialism. Didn't do it on purpose, had no game in it, but let's face facts. And now it's going to be Battle Royale in there, so hop on the bus, we're dropping in the Congo, it seems is the case. And I don't know, I don't have any solutions for that. I just want to point out that that's also happening and is being completely ignored because, well, it seems we're drawing lines on where the major geopolitical blocks are going to be. So it's fun, good times.
Multipolar world, so cool, much love.
Yay! You know,
Yay.
like, I think it was in 2020, some American politicians called Gen Z essentially cowards for not having lived in a world with the threat of nuclear annihilation on their heads. We're just like rolling the clock back. We're doing nukes. We're doing going back to like colonial imperial blocks. It's just like, look, I'm not gonna say that I haven't been hoping for the end of US hegemony for a while. I should have thought what I was wishing for. I should have put more thought into what I was wishing for at the time.
I'm getting feedback that apparently there's still some noise happening in the stream audio. Even when I assumed that it was just from my phone when I was walking around, but apparently it continues when I'm muted.
Chat, quick. Let us know if we're having sound issues on stream.
Is it possible that you maybe have a tab open that is making some noise or something? Because like in the audio call, like I have no problem at all.
Second. Oh no! It is literally, for those who don't see, I am fidgeting with this because my tism doesn't express in Nazi salutes. It's expressed in fidgeting with stuff, and I forgot that my microphone is being broadcast. Whoops.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, that might be it. Yeah.
My bad. It's been going on for like 5 minutes now. Sorry, anybody had to listen to that.
Okay, question in the chat. Yeah, on nuclear. Should Sweden, Finland, Ukraine, Baltics, and Romania develop nuclear weapons? Yes, 100%. Unfortunately, we learned by the invasion of Ukraine in 2014, if you don't have nuclear weapons or
You
allies
get
willing to
invaded.
fulfill your security agreements, you get invaded, and that's not great. And to be honest, it's more about like continental redundancy. We shouldn't be entirely dependent on just the French nuclear deterrent. That's just the reality of it. And it is something that multiple countries should have the capacity for, and also to make sure that this capacity is spread out over multiple countries, so we have redundancy. And I think this is kind of applies for every part of this military buildup. And we should also understand, like, okay, so there's like, this sucks, like, in general, like, not ideal, but in positive silver lining, governments are willing to spend a crazy amount of money right now. That means we also need to be pushing really heavily to get them to carve off social spending in that. Housing, making sure that these factories aren't in a couple of places but spread out across the continent. You know, one of the big things the Americans did with their military industrial complex is have one thing in every single congressional district, so everyone got a little bit of the pie of the military spending and jobs and whatnot. And all of this will be very important, because otherwise it'll just be like 4 mega companies making a crazy amount of money, and it all being very centered on a couple of existing industrial territories.
By the way, and this is where I out myself and is one of those crazy woke leftists, I know. But one of the things that I think is a very good moment in time to push for is, and I've been screaming about this for a while, but it is a good time to politely, or not so politely, especially in the Euro level, remind everybody that universal basic income is a good thing. We are facing a time where people would need to start having strong loyalties and also have incentives to join an army. I pay you some money to live okay every month is a very good incentive for a significant portion of the population that if push comes to shove to grab a weapon and go shooty pooty. So, just saying. Email your congressman.
Let me just confirm that your fidget spinner was indeed the problem. Rotte, yeah, that was actually a point that you made in one of your videos on TikTok that actually got more than 1 million views. So, by the way, congratulations for that. The one on Vance's speech at the Munich Security Conference and the breakaway of the U.S. from EU, basically, is the fact that essentially the U.S.'s military presence in the EU is the main reason why the EU has been able to develop such a strong social safety net in the post-war era up until today. And that is going to be a major downside of the new times, is that maybe we're going to reach a point where fiscally it's not going to be realistic anymore to maintain the services that we've had for the last, I don't know, like 50 years-ish, something like that.
If we do not
And
address,
that is a very...
if you do not address the tax codes we use, yes, that would be a problem.
I disagree, because we live in a fiat economy. We don't live
Also
in a
true.
gold standard economy. We can spend money as long as we have things to spend money on. And I am of the strong opinion that military spending is something that should be non-debt spending. And this should be funded directly out of the European Central Bank, not out of individual state budgets. Because this is how we have to think about things. Like we said earlier, all the other countries are doing some like Mickey Mouse nonsense voodoo economics. Like this is like this is just like the game. We need to have an economic system that functions so that like we all can buy and sell stuff and exist. Not one that like it is not governed by hard rules of nature or whatever. So like we can spend on military, we can keep spending on social spending. It's like
look,
this is the economy we built after World War II. Like this isn't new. This is just Keynesianism. And so like I don't think it's very radical.
If we want to have the best possible outcome, the EU will have to take a bit more, because like You said everybody's doing Mickey Mouse shit. To quote George Bush Sr., this is voodoo economics. We've been doing voodoo economics for about 20 years now, with all this like trickle down garbage bullshit that I need 6 PhDs to figure out why the fuck wouldn't you just tax the guy with the most money. But if we do a bit less voodoo and a bit more Keynesian economics, where yes, we raise the tax rates for the rich, and ooh, this pile of money, Rheinmetall, can I have a tank? Like, it's not that hard of a calculation. Ooh, pile of money. Nokia, you guys make planes these days, can ya? Like, you can just do that. And also, yeah, everybody's doing Mickey Mouse shit. The Russian economy is planned bullshit. It's planned bullshit economy. The Chinese economy is 3 bubbles in a trench coat, and the US economy stopped existing 15 years ago, just nobody has told them. And this, we could just be the sensible ones where we take a little bit of the Mickey Mouse bullshit, but dress it up in some nice clothes and pull it off. I see no reason why not. Also, in the end, in fiat economies, the strength of your currency is how strong your government is. And I don't want to bother anybody, but do you trust the Donald not to implode the dollar? Because I don't. And you know, it doesn't help if the EU just puts like funds a few economists to broadcast that statement. Hey man, our government's a bit more stable than yours. Maybe the euro should do one of these. And if the euro does one of these, it doesn't matter if the EU central bank goes crank, crank, crank on the money printer. So, yeah.
Could be cool if we could get back to seeing if there's any updates about
Yeah, we should check
the
what's
German
happening.
results.
Let's
But I
pull
did
them
want to
up.
say, like, have you guys seen the news of Elon Musk saying that he wanted to pay back the, so far I think it's 40 billion that they've supposedly managed to save in government waste, supposedly waste through Doge, and he was to pay that back to the taxpayers as a like a stimulus check or whatever.
If he does that, I'm losing 10 kilograms in a week. Like, I'm not gonna eat for a week just to
First
prove
of all,
to you how
yes.
much I don't believe this
But-
is happening.
But the second thing is, I did the calculations. They said that they want to use 20% of it to the taxpayer, another 20% of it to offset the debt, and then I have no fucking idea where the remaining 60% go. Probably in the pocket of Elon Musk or something.
I cannot even.
But you do the calculation, and 20% of $40 billion divided
Is
by
8
the US
billion.
population is going to be something like, I don't know, they're going to get $12 at the end of the month or something like that at the end of the year.
It's
It's not really something that is going to be like that big of a difference for any voter, I
quick
think.
math on the top of my head. It's $11.80. I
Something
scuffed
along there,
the
yeah.
math. Also, I'm calculating for 360 million Americans. I don't know how many Americans there are.
It's 350 million, somewhere around that, give or take.
Okay.
So we have a new projection in.
Okay.
So
Can
it
you
is
send me a link so I can pull
already
it
in
up on
already in
screen?
the chat. You can
Oh.
pull it up.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Let's
I'm
have a
definitely not
look.
able to watch anything on my phone right now.
So, well,
So we have a slightly better result for the SPD at 16.2, a slightly worse result for the CDU with 28.9. The Greens are slightly worse in this one at 13%. FDP is the same. AfD's a little bit up at 19.9. The left is at the same as before at 8.5. The Wagenknecht is at 4.8. I think that's 1 point up. Or no, that's the same as before.
Wagenknecht, by the way. It's hard to pronounce. Yeah.
Wagenknecht. Next.
Wagenknecht.
I'm gonna mess that one up.
Doesn't
I'm sorry,
speak
sorry,
German.
German. But you know, if she wanted me to pronounce her name, she could have performed a little better in the polls, and that's what I'm saying. I put the effort in if you win elections. But yeah, so that's not. I mean, congrats, Mike, for the SPD, I guess. But yeah, I guess we gotta wait a little bit longer.
Do we have?
But it
seat
doesn't look like there's much
allocations?
movement here.
Do we have seat allocations for this?
Not yet. I'm waiting for them to pull up that map.
Yeah, it doesn't seem that we're changing stuff. So it seems we have mostly settled. It is a CDU, CSU, SDP coalition with potential Greens. Some Greens sprinkled on top.
I'm actually surprised because literally the day before, or I think it was Friday, someone was arrested for an alleged planned attack on the Israeli embassy, and a few hours later there was a stabbing at the Jewish memorial in Berlin, and so close to an election where attacks of that style, regardless of who commits them, but attacks of that style are such a big topic of discussion. I was expecting everyone to jump to the conclusion that it was just another asylum seeker attack, and that for that to have a huge impact on or like to have some impact in pushing the AfD even further up. So I'm surprised that they've underperformed the polls to this extent.
I think there is a serious chance that these type of attacks might be played out because the level of threat has raised for everybody. So I don't think that everybody is suddenly as concerned about a brown guy with a knife as Nukes. I feel like Nukes is a bit scarier.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
For sure, but I was really concerned by the timing of the attack, because like the how many there have been in the last couple of weeks, like very convenient right before the election, was almost getting to the point where it was like suspicious to me. And we know that in the last couple of years there have been over 100 incidents that authorities consider to be suspicious and possibly linked to Russia, that are either sabotage on infrastructure or actual attacks or psychological operations. The one that I think is really interesting is an operation that happened in France. It was the day after pro-Palestine protests, where the protesters were marching with their hands painted red, and the next day people were caught. I mean, were seen defacing a Jewish monument with red paint, like with red painted hands on the monument, and they were able to flee. But investigators were able to determine that those people, even though initially it was blamed on the pro-Palestine protests, which was the point, but those people were actually Russian agents that were identified and that were specifically trying to sow division between the pro-Palestine protests and the authorities and the Jewish community and the far right and all of that. So I'm not necessarily saying that any or that all or any of the recent attacks have anything to do with Russia, but it's definitely a dynamic to keep in mind, whether it's sabotage or whether it's anything else happening when it comes to how it inflames or how it affects the political climate.
It definitely seems suspicious, but I'm not gonna say more due to lack of any evidence.
Yeah, I mean,
that's exactly what I mean. Yeah,
I've been, just to tinfoil hat a little bit. I've been thinking some more things,
if you would please.
But I have like my gut keeps saying, like, if I was running any sort of organization that was an accelerationist group that wanted to take down European democracy, I mean, this would be like a good moment to go a bit wild, regardless of whether that's coming from like, Muslim extremists or right-wing Nazis or whatever. Like, an election that's super tense is like an opportunity to push for anything.
I'm being a genius by broadcasting my location to anyone who wants to do me harm.
Yes.
Actually, also, quick question: is this called the Berlin Gate or the Brandenburg Gate in Germany?
It's the Brandenburg Gate.
Okay.
Brandenburg.
Okay, Bulgaria not getting a foreign name wrong for once. You should probably avoid broadcasting your location, since we know that there is a couple Iranians who have some objections to this channel's existence.
I checked the watch stats on the stream at the moment, and I'm not too worried about that.
Okay.
Wait, you have Iranian problems?
Oh, you don't know? Don't worry about it.
Suspected. Like I'll probably never know, but we published Ida, who is the production manager of Barely Informed, made a documentary a year ago, more than a year ago now, I think. Like suspiciously, right around the time we started to reach out to Iranian activists and interview them, we started to get there's just a string of suspicious hacking alerts and stuff like that on our various devices, and it got really, really weird.
Okay, sorry, I'm gonna now interrupt this program for a bit of fun. So Stan, there is somebody in the Discord of the Barely Informed Discord, whose Discord name is Mr. Beast, and has a picture of Mr. Beast on their Discord. And this person
Yeah,
seems
I
to
know,
be
I know.
relatively interested in Bulgarian politics, as anytime something crazy happens here, they ping me to ask me, what up? And I had left my Discord DMs visible on stream, and the Snapchat is asking why Mr. Beast is DMing me. Don't worry, guys, it's a secret sponsorship for the channel. That he's gonna give us money, then we're gonna abuse some children, and next thing you know, we're rich. I believe that's the Mr. Beast model. I haven't checked.
Okay, we have to tell them. So we've rented out an island, and we're going to be trying to ask some of the subscribers to do a little bit of a thing. And we promise it's mostly legal. It's Malta, so don't stress.
We've rented out Malta. Like, guys, don't worry, we've rented out the Malta, and if it seems to you like I'm training a left-wing paramilitary over here, no, don't worry about it.
Can you imagine the Mr. Beast video of we trained the left-wing paramilitary just to see what happens?
Oh my god!
Instant
But,
drone strike is what happens.
Guys, we all thought it was going to be insane, but then day 2, it got even crazier.
JD Vance para drops on location.
We were like, if we're gonna make a navy, we're gonna have to have a naval vessel. But then I thought, we can't just have one. We gotta have at least 3. So first I was wondering, where do you buy a naval vessel? And funny enough, my buddy Jason Snev said that...
No.
cousin-
My friend Victor Boot was selling one. For those who don't know, Victor Boot is the real-life arms dealer that Nicolas Cage's character in Lord of War was based off of.
And then the Americans traded
who
him
was
for a
recently-
basketball player.
Exactly, who was recently released from U.S. prison and sent back to Russia in exchange for a basketball player. Yeah.
For a falsely arrested basketball player, and they didn't even get any draft picks or like some trade stuffs. Just like, I'm sorry guys, the Luka Doncic trade is the second worst trade of recent history. And if you want me to vamp stream, I can explain to you the labor theory of value with the Luka Doncic trade. That's where I've gotten to in my insanity. I am losing my mind at billionaires acting like they broke. It's like every billionaire trying to cut a penny 19 ways. Motherfucker, you have enough money to buy all my organs and then staple me back together. Use them for some good. At least...
No, but seriously though, with the breakdown of international law, there is maybe a huge opportunity for some insane YouTube content of getting involved with arms dealers and stuff like that. Like, if
I can't see that going there.
if what's his name? If Andrew Tate is able to get out of prison free of charge and completely let go after like just bragging about being a sex trafficker for so long. Honestly, yeah, there's an opportunity there to make a lot of money doing some like batshit crazy content.
Yeah,
I need to state, because I have a large Romanian following now, the most important thing you do in the next election is make sure anyone you elect keeps Andrew Tate in jail.
Yeah.
You have a sacred vow that you must keep those motherfuckers stuck in your country for the rest of time. That's on you guys now. You have to take one for the team.
Also, dear
I
Romanians.
don't even know. Go ahead.
Dear Romanians, you probably know as well as I do, those bridges on the Danube we built, the Bulgaria-Romania connecting bridges, you know as well as I do, we removed the explosive charges in 2010. That's how long our governments didn't like each other. You let Andrew out, I am personally putting the explosive charges back on them bridges. I am not letting him smell this country.
And you've already got his cars. He's already had to pay you his house. Like, there's no downside to this.
Just keep him there. Occasionally send a picture of his receiving hairline.
At some point, the state of Romania will own the merchandising rights and copyright on Andrew Tate's name.
Yeah, does Romania get Hustlers University? But no, if Romania owns Hustlers University, it becomes an actual university. No, we don't. We cannot let this happen. the first grift to actual university.
The state of Romania copyrights Manosphere. This is a trademark.
I'm sorry, I need to run for Romanian president somehow. Let me just learn Romanian real quick. I'm already named Traian, so I can fit in, but like, oh, the language is gonna get me.
Yeah, sorry, I was arguing with police to try to get through a police barricade. Now I have to do a huge detour because I can, so I missed part of the conversation there. So I know that Andrew Tate announced, which is just a complete meme, party meme announcement, that he's running for UK Prime Minister. I don't know if this was fake news or if it's a real thing that Elon Musk supports him in his bid for the Prime Ministership. I think it was fake news, but honestly, yeah, I think it was fake news, but honestly, I wouldn't even put it past Elon Musk at this point, so I'm not sure.
You didn't hear that the U.S. is pressuring Romania now to release him. That was like a day ago.
I did see that. Yeah, I did see that.
Yeah. And I believe his political party, BRUV, BRUV, yes, dumb timeline.
Jesus.
Accept it. We're in a dumb timeline. You're stupid.
I mean, hey, Doge is in government now, so.
Yeah, but yeah, it's I don't know. Elon is gonna fund probably the Reform and the Tories, and if Tate manages to leave Romania, which the Romanians cannot let him out, we have to re-emphasize this. You keep him there.
You know, if you've ever been to the Dracula castle, like I've been, the corridors are unreasonably like tight. Like your motherfuckers just really decided to make a corridor yay big. So like, how about you put him on a helicopter, drop them in the middle of a castle? That motherfucker is too broad to get out. That's it. That's how we solve the Tate problem. Just put both of them in there, and we good. Okay? I know it's a national landmark. You have a cool bazaar next to it where you can buy some souvenirs. It probably makes you some money. But hear me out.
Next Mr. Beast video. Yeah, so we spent 3 weeks in a castle off the coast with Andrew Tate.
You're not watching chat.
They said it would be impossible.
I made a joke.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it's we live in a very silly and absurd time.
It's...
Yeah, I mean, like I don't know if you guys saw, they had this post-liberalism conference run by Mr. Professor Jordan Peterson.
Yeah.
And the head
No,
of
I'm
the
sorry,
Conservative
Rotte,
Party-
important connection. He's legally not a professor anymore. His license has got revoked. As of right now, I am more of a psychologist than him. So he's not professor. He's just
Sorry,
Jordan Peterson.
Mr. Jordan Peterson.
Also, he says that pronouns shouldn't be mandatory to be used, so Mrs. Peterson, if we have to be precise.
Don't we just call him citizen then? I believe that's the French Revolution. Demarcates.
You're giving me ideas. You're giving me ideas, but the terms of service do not agree.
Yeah, but like it's absurd, and that's like where we're at. We're like the MAGA, like global MAGA thing is real. It's constantly happening. You saw it yesterday in the last 3 days at CPAC. It's truly absurd. And I think for example, like Maloney spoke at CPAC, and I thought that was a bit bizarre because I was like, you were definitely at the 2 defense conferences this week when everyone was panicking. It's like, I don't think you understand, Georgia, what side you picked.
Also,
like,
Meloni, as much as she postures and does all this bullshit, is definitely pro-Europe. And like, from what I've seen, majority of Italians are big-time pro-Europe people at the moment. Like, yeah, the Deep South is the Deep South, but it does appear that the Deep South is in any country is fucked, so...
Guys, just letting you know that I'm about to run out of battery, and I don't think I can charge my phone, so I'm probably gonna have to cut it short very soon unless I'm able to fix my battery situation. I'm gonna leave stream for now. I'm just gonna let my phone charge, and I'll join you back again later, so you can do your thing for the next half hour or something.
Sorry, Rotte, this is a fantastic opportunity for me to introduce you to one of the recurring characters, a repeating mistake of this channel, a person called Olivia Olberg, which came in here with the lovely statement, Meloni isn't bad, but she needs to move way more to the right. Olivia, if Meloni moves some more to the right, she's gonna be like off the spectrum. The autistic spectrum, too. Like, how much more to the right do you want her to go? Do you want her to call her Grandpa Mussolini? Yes, Olivia is our local troll fascist. We tend to disregard this creature, but we don't worry about it right now. Anyway, do we have any more?
Meloni is moderate compared to Orban. I mean, that is probably an objective statement.
True. Then again,
It's not saying much though. Like 97 to 99 is not that big of a difference. Like we're really splitting hairs here.
well-
And that difference is a lot more like they got personal beef right now from last
Oh
year.
yeah, they
and,
did.
like they just have a personal tiff. Like,
Hey, look, Orban just straight up called her ugly, which, if nothing else, is we are doing interesting things. Why is it that like fascists always start insulting people on their appearance? And they just don't have material. Anyway, shall we get back to Romania, because the Romanians in chat will riot if I ignore them any longer. I love the comment from other people saying that Romania should release Tate because the prosecutors bungled the prosecution and then put him in jail anyway. Which, yeah, you have now Romania, you have the sword has fallen on you, have the moral obligation to keep that man back in jail forever. Whatever reason. If you don't have like, you should make like a bad hairline law and arrest him on that. I mean, Iaco's saying
man.
fascists are eternal contrarians. They are. It's just they're annoying, is what they are. Me describing some of the most politically horrific people alive as annoying is a statement.
What I think something that's kind of funny that I noticed, especially like for example, this like Meloni needs to be more right. It's kind of like the centrists going. It's like, what? Well, if they just moved to the center more, everything would be okay. Like there's some objective like level of like rightward drift you can reach, and then utopia happens.
Yes.
Like how could you be like, look at Viktor Orban's Hungary in the year 2025 right now in his political situation and be like, man, it'd be so much better if she did that.
Oh, that seems lovely. Never ask where a third of the Hungarian population went. Germany, by the way. Is that in Germany, since you were asking? Hungary is not having a good time. I have a Hungarian friend who lives in Bulgaria, and I very rarely talk to them. This person ends every conversation with me, and I'm still waiting for Orban to die. And they've been waiting for the 4 years that I've known them. So, if your own people hate you this much, you're not doing good.
Yeah, Fidesz is solidly in second place for several months now, and
Yeah, but
not
they're
doing
just
that.
going to postpone the election for as long as they can. I think it's 27 is when the election is supposed to happen, yes?
Next year, right? 26, beginning of
Oh,
26.
maybe. Let's have a look. I stream, let's do research together.
Yeah, 26. Yep. Parliamentary
mean-
elections.
April 26. Well, let's see what bullshit Orban tries to pull.
Yeah, and Tisa's like way up. They're at 39%.
I want to...
And that's in a scenario where like other parties run against Fidesz, and there's a good chance that nobody else runs except for Tisa.
I mean, as far as I understand, currently, like, they're trying to form a grandest possible coalition. Everybody pile up on Fidesz type of deal. Sort of the way Milosevic got kicked out of power from Serbia, where quite literally everybody piled on. They just picked, this is our presidential, this is our prime ministerial candidate, everybody in. That seems to be where we're going. Also, yes, it appears I've pissed off Olivia in chat, which, if I've angered the Nazi, that's a good thing. I can't stress enough, every point of higher blood pressure I cause Olivia is a reason for me to be happy.
I mean, Hungary is better than Bulgaria. I mean, I like goulash, but Bulgaria's got some pretty great food, and more importantly, beaches. Beaches are a big plus.
Look, Hungary
Landlocked.
also used to have beaches, then things happen.
Yep, this is true. The Austrians are a bit salty about not having Trieste either.
Hey, we are still mad about Macedonia, and we can't even figure out who owns that shit. Oh, did you hear about the Bulgarian fascists breaking into the building of the EU Commission in Sofia yesterday?
No, I did not. I did not hear about this.
Our fascists are having a spastic moment. So for those of you who don't know, Bulgaria is on the final stretch of adopting the euro. A lot of our systems have already been switched to euro, and the expected adoption date is the 1st of July. But the Bulgarian fascists have found something to campaign on, and they insist we must protect the Bulgarian lev. Here's the plot twist, guys. The Bulgarian lev has been fake euro for like 15 to 20 years. Like, it's just pegged to the euro. The Bulgarian leu is not an independent currency. It is entirely, it is entirely basically euro. It's just, oh, Olivia, oh, you cheeky bricky, you think you're gonna get me with that one? But yeah, it's entirely back to the euro. It's not a real currency, and we've signed the agreement that we're gonna move to euro 10 years ago, and now the Bulgarian fascists are going full crazy. And yesterday they organized a protest and broke into the building of the EU Commission in Sofia. Then threw some chairs around, broke some windows. You know, the typical confused fascists has entered a building they're not meant to be in situation. Until the police finally kicked them out. Because the police were like, okay,
Give
Are
us
you
power. No. Well, we're here. We're here.
we are going to cause minor building damage.
We hate this lamp. Here, this one. Right here. Yeah. Government. All right, so we have.
Do we have any updates?
Yes.
How
we have
have the
another
Germans held?
So this is what.
Harris asking, isn't it an average day in Bulgaria? No, exactly, but not too far. This is the 5th time the Bulgarian fascists have tried to break into a building. So far, they have a 40% success rate. I don't even know anymore.
Yeah, so we've got just to give you an idea. So they put up on Deutsche Welle like what the possible coalitions would be, and yeah, you can make one with the AfD and CDU, but you know, there's not that much of an advantage for the CDU to do this. Like, there's no big win there. I think the downsides are way too hard. I just don't see them making this decision at this point.
Did you send the poll in Discord so I can put it up?
It's in the chat already.
Oh, so this is just showing
Just the coalition stuff.
so CDU SDP can form a government with what is this? With 3 people to spare, right? Yeah.
No, more. It's 315.
315
So-
and together they have 328. Oh yeah. So 13 people to spare.
13 people. Yeah.
And yeah, they
And
can
like
form
obviously
one
this one's
with the
gonna get bigger,
AfD.
but yeah.
It's definitely a bigger figure, but it's not. I don't see it as feasible. I think I'm sorry for the anticlimax, guys, but I think this one's pretty settled. I think it's going to be CUSDP. Rares, I don't know how to pronounce your name in chat. But do you actually want to enter the Eurozone? It's kinda, we are far away from that. Using the Euro is a bit rough on poor countries. The thing is, Rares, we've been using the Euro for 20 years. We've just been printing monopoly euros called the Bulgarian lev. The Bulgarian lev is Euro. It's not a different currency. It's a localized euros we use here. That's the reason we might as well enter. And the reason we didn't enter before is because things were cheaper for us, as the Bulgarian lev is cheaper than the Euro. But inflation threw that away. Also, say hi to this cat. This is obviously he's black. He's a CSU supporter, as you can see easily. Not Bavarian, and yeah. So that's.
I think, yeah, with like the Eurozone thing, also one of the reasons it's like harder for poorer countries is because there's hardcore rules around deficit
Yes.
spending. And if that is going to be dramatically altered in the next few weeks because of the need for immense amounts of defense spending, that really it removes a lot of the problem, right? Like, the problem is we artificially, and I say we as in the conservatives and primarily German bankers at the central bank, decided that they wanted to live in fake austerity and believed that we couldn't spend money unless there was a 1-to-1 amount of tax coming back in. And this is not a good way to run a government because that basically means you can't actually spend.
You
things
can't
from the government's
function as a
proceeds.
government.
You can't function. Yeah, like that's the whole point. The government pays for shit that no one else can pay for.
Oh my, shocking news. Also, do you
Wow.
know what a government can do? Government can borrow money almost ad infinitum because it's a government. You have to put a massive act of Greasery to, default on debts. Like, Greece had to really try. Greece was in like 20% deficit for almost 30 years in order for the shit to get bad for them. And the only reason it got bad for them is because other people were like, hey Greece, can you pay up? Like, it wasn't actually that much of a problem. It became a problem by being a problem. But another reason, the main reason that there is opposition to joining the Euro in Bulgaria is a lot of the Bulgarian kleptocrats hide their money in Bulgarian levs wherever they can. And the way a country like ours transitioned to euro is you have to declare all your money to transition them to euros. So they're trying to hide it. And as a matter of fact, like now that we have a new government, which is essentially the kleptocrats' last gasp, essentially they coalitioned all the corrupt parties together in a thing that ideologically would make no sense, and it only makes sense if you're Bulgarian and you understand how this bullshit works. They made this government and they started doing stupid things to try to delay the euro, us joining the eurozone. Like we were perfectly ready. It was just the time limit, and they are now in power and being like, quickly, do the stupidity. And they are. What can you do? But it's not gonna last, I think, because essentially the reformist government. So for those who don't know, the reformists were in power, and then we had like the 8th election deadlock. But the way things works here, the last actual elected government sets the budget, and then the caretaker governments just like extend that budget to best they can to fit the needs of the country while there isn't a government. So for about 3 years we were operating with the reformist budget, and that put us into a position where not entering the eurozone is not really an option anymore. Because even though the reformists might be assholes, libs can actually be competent. They're just usually very annoying and ineffective if push comes to shove. But hey, you didn't want a black lady America. How's that going for you? As stated, the only competent person Donald Trump ever hired was Stormy Daniels.
Yeah, I think also the other thing to remember is like the way, quote unquote, poor EU countries become rich EU countries is Brussels sending a shit ton of euros to that country, and that's it.
Like Bulgaria gets almost like 2 times the amount of money we send to Brussels. Like we are sheerly on profit, and that's without addressing the fact that like as of now the biggest businesses in Bulgaria that are not like either leftover businesses from communist times or government owned are like what we call the Euro businesses, which are things that popped up after or around the time we were joining the EU, which one way or another work with other EU businesses or provide services and stuff like that. These are some of the biggest companies in Bulgaria at the moment. And this is like one of the reasons that Bulgaria is such a weird situation where the political elite, I don't know what to call them, most of the political groupings are, well, corrupt, but they can't be that corrupt because all the money in the country comes from the EU, and a lot of people work for EU businesses and stuff like that. So that creates an instant pushback block if you try to separate yourself from the EU. For example, since Macron didn't invite the Bulgarian Prime Minister to the security talks, essentially we've started calling him traitor. Because the only reason you wouldn't be invited is because you're giving Russia too much ass. And that is not acceptable. Like, yeah, there is a lot of people in Bulgaria who like Russia. There is a lot more people who don't like Russia. So his nickname now is traitor. And I'm sticking
Also,
to that.
Bulgaria is a massive weapons manufacturer, all the stuff. So
Well,
and
conventional
that's
weapons,
where
let's be
the
very
NATO
clear.
Black Sea Fleet is.
It's based in our ports, it's not our ships. Because Bulgaria doesn't do navy. For those of you who don't know Bulgarian history, Bulgarian be allergic to navies. I don't know why. The one time in history we had a big navy, we burnt it. No, so anti-navy.
Dude, I think the craziest Bulgarian history thing, like I was reading through like the Bulgarian wars with like the Eastern Romans, and then like the story about how like every Bulgarian man who was sent against Constantinople was blinded, and then it's like one generation later they tried to conquer Constantinople again. I was like, you guys really like hardcore keep just.
I'm
like,
sorry.
"We'll fuck up the Romans
Not
one
only
day."
that, 150 years later, a Bulgarian king captured a bunch of like Byzantines or Eastern Romans, just put them in the trench and buried the trench as a revenge. Just that's the level of mental we are. But the craziest bit of Bulgarian history is definitely the dog war. It happened 101 years ago now. Border tension between Bulgaria and Greece post World War One. A Greek border guard loses control of his dog. Dog crosses into Bulgaria. Border guard goes to chase the dog, gets immediately shot. Greece sends a detachment to recover his body. Fight, kills a few Bulgarians. Bulgaria sends a detachment to recover the bodies. Next thing you know, 3 days later is escalating with both countries sending artillery over the border to shoot at the other one, and the French go, okay, break it up, fucking sit down. So yeah, it was the one time the French were the voice of reason.
And I think actually that leads us into like a good conversation around like the breakdown of like the rules-based world order, because we were all born, because all of us
In
are
a world where
around us-
these things were settled in courts.
yeah, or not even courts, just like long, endless discussions where like maybe everyone just agrees to just get a little bit. And this is how Europe runs. Like this is literally the whole European Union concept. Is like if we have enough discussions for a long enough time, we will reach some sort of agreement that we all can live with. And then if we're unhappy about that, we just keep talking until we're all settled.
We
and this
we
could
find
last
something, yeah.
yeah, and this is like it's highly frustrating if you're like a normal human, but this is the ideal way for countries to operate with each other that doesn't involve them fighting wars.
No, I
And-
agree. But the alternative to this world is I have the bigger gun.
Yeah.
Which is the problem, I think.
Which is also the alternative for Deutschland, I guess.
Do they have a bigger gun?
Sorry, I was just wanted to make a point of a technical order. I was listening to the stream on Twitch while I was charging my phone, and I noticed that the sound is only coming from one ear. Maybe there's some setting to do to have your audio in mono instead of stereo. Brian.
Chat, can you confirm and or deny? Is Stan's phone broken or is the stream broken?
I mean, either there's something wrong with my Twitch app, but when I'm in Discord, it's definitely coming from both sides. When I went to listen on Twitch, it was coming only from the right side.
I unfortunately am not good at audio. Also, nobody in chat is letting me know. Streams hours, okay. So
Yeah,
I
it
think
probably
you
doesn't
have
really
a
matter
problem
that
with
much
your audio
here.
because two people have confirmed that the sound is.
Possibly.
You know what? Can somebody from Twitch say something? Because these are YouTube.
I think there's only 2 people listening on Twitch, so I don't think the likelihood of them
getting a
saying
comment.
anything is relatively low.
Oh well, yeah. But Rota, you were talking about the rules-based world order.
Yeah,
Would
I
you
think
like
it's
to make
you
your
know
point.
yeah, I think this is the scary part for me is the way things used to happen is either one of the major powers would want something or a small event would happen and then they'd be like, can I take advantage of this situation? Like something like the dog war. There was a major incident in Tangier, and this was like called the Morocco crisis. Similar thing. It was like a French trader had a disagreement with another trader, and then this escalated to the point where like France and Germany almost went to war with one another. And these very small things, if you don't have structures, like permanent structures for countries to work out these differences, they rapidly get out of control. And when you have a person like Donald Trump who just doesn't believe in the legitimacy of any international, rules-based making system, everything is a one-on-one deal. Everything is individual agreements, and the whole world cannot run like that.
No, it can. But it did for a while. Just it did not run well.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's always something that's frustrating to think about. It's the difference between what counts as a long time in our lifetimes and what counts as a long time in the grand scheme of history. The relative period of stability that the world has enjoyed, well, mostly the Western world has enjoyed, Europe and North America for the most part, in basically in our lifetimes. That is just the blink of an eye in the grand scheme of things, and there's no reason that had to last forever, unfortunately.
I mean, yeah, but it's such a stupid way to go, though. Like, for me, this is maybe the worst bit, that there wasn't any need for any of this to happen. And all of this, at least in my head, seems like a consequence of the economic struggles that were born out of the 2008 economic crisis and the half-assed austerity bullshit that all the governments did to keep rich people rich. And that just completely upset any democratic order we had. Also, it doesn't help that while politically we're democratic, economically we are not. You cannot vote in a new boss if your boss is a piece of shit. and we're supposed to solve this problem with unions, but we just stapled a democratic organization next to the authoritarian one, and it doesn't go anywhere. So that is how I feel about this, but unoptimal and weird that the world we've lived until now is, it's a better deal than gunball diplomacy, I think. So that's it.
Yeah, I think I think about the Second Chechen War. I think about Iraq as like these really shattering moments for the post-Cold War like fantasy. Like that, it's like, oh, when bad things happen, America or like some UN thing will jump in and settle it all. Like, look what we did. We stopped these Balkan wars that were going on for years and blah blah blah. This intense like almost millennial stuff. Yeah.
I just now realized that the US was the biggest guarantor of Kosovo.
Yeah.
The EU does need to step in, because like, I present you Balkan politics. Do I think Kosovo is a country? Yeah, but I like the Serbians
the main
more.
there is EU4 now. It's been like that for like 3 or 4
I
years.
hope so, because like, I do not want another genocide on my borders. If one of you ever wants to have an eye-opening experience, go find like a Yugoslav war veteran. Like, I know it's easier to do this in Bulgaria than the rest of Europe, but it's not that challenging. You would understand why war bad real quick. And then you have to understand that even with that information in mind, I am still in favor of sending troops to support Ukraine. Because the alternative is war way bigger, we fucked. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think like people keep thinking, they're like, well, Russia couldn't actually defeat the EU. Like they couldn't actually do it. That's not the way you should think about it.
If we keep
It's
letting
what
them
can
get
happen in
away
the
with
media.
shit, like, eventually.
But like also it's like even in a failed attempt. I like the thing I always go back to is the German military before World War II did a ton of war games and war crafting around how they would beat the Soviet Union, and they never ever even in every single one of their models where they gave themselves all the benefits possible ever on paper beat the Soviet Union. Did that stop them from actually trying to do it? No. Like that's the thing. Putin thought he could defeat Ukraine in 3 days. He's been there 3 years now in just the most recent full-scale invasion. Like just because you think, like
Just
like
because logic doesn't mean that this will work, doesn't mean the crazy won't try it.
Yeah.
I listened to there was a comedian on French radio a few days ago did a fictional imagining of what Russia invading Western Europe would be, and it was honestly genius. Just the short thing is like they started by invading Belgium, like 9 a.m. They invade Belgium, through the channel, and Belgium, with their united government and strong sense of national unity, took up arms to defend the country. At 10 a.m. they give up, and then they start to invade France, and essentially, the thing that stopped them in this fictional thing was traffic in Paris was too bad, so that after a few days of the tanks being stuck in traffic, they end up giving up and going home.
By the way, I don't want to bother you, but I actually had a conversation with the Ukrainian. The Ukrainians are genuinely mad at the EU that we didn't bomb the convoy. Do you remember that convoy in the beginning of the war? I was just sitting there forever.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the Ukrainians were actually the reason that convoy was there. They were sending infantry to constantly fuck with them. And they were so hoping that we would just bomb it. Because it's a convoy of fucking supplies sitting there. If we were to bomb this convoy, Russia is fucked. And we didn't. This is what I mean that we need to send troops now. It would have taken us one bombing raid 3 years ago to solve this problem. We didn't. It would take us now committing about 100,000 to 200,000 troops to solve this problem. If we don't now, what is it gonna cost us in 5 years? Because Putin's not gonna stop invading places. Like, he's been doing it for 20 years. If you think he's having a change of heart now, you haven't been paying attention.
It would be extremely funny if Putin was stuck in in Ukraine for however many years that war lasts, and then he finally manages to like break through and win in Ukraine, and he goes on to Europe and like manages to invade the entire thing in like 6 months or something. That would be extremely funny in a that was ridiculous kind of way.
Let's hope
No,
not.
not funny. Bad.
I am that you do not understand how much I am a fan of the Polish right now, because like I promise you, Putin like sends one soldier on your land and they go in, and like oh thank you Polska, my deepest thanks. You are right all along. The Russians are cunts. We didn't listen when we had to.
It's it's true. It's true. And also, you know, a good chunk of current Russia used to be Poland just a few decades ago. So just throwing it out there.
You know, like you feel like maybe Belarus can be reintegrated.
And
Poland,
Poland are
Lithuania
still
can,
salty about that, by the way.
for a good reason.
For good reason.
Yeah.
And Finns are still salty about Karelia. I mean, they got chunks
Yeah.
of it.
Hey, we could arrange him to get it back. Is all I'm saying.
I mean, the deepest cut is Kuban should go to Ukraine. Just throwing it out there.
I'm sorry, no, I raise objections. You said you were looking into Bulgarian history. I hereby incentivize you to Google Old Great Bulgaria. I am laying claim on Kuban and Crimea because there was a country called Bulgaria there 1,400 years ago. I'm going without fucking justification. That's what I'm going with. Gimme. I actually demand to personally own Cuban, all of it. Kuban, not Cuban. I do not own Mark Cuban.
One of my favorite bits of trivia about Poland is the Polish soldiers in Napoleon's army that were in Haiti and decided to flip and join the Haitian revolution against Napoleon. Those people, like they stayed in Haiti after the country gained independence, and their descendants legally, according to the Haitian government, have the right to call themselves black. So they're like legally recognized as black, despite being, even if they're like 100% Polish, all the way up their family tree, they're legally black in Haiti. So basically, it's like the ultimate N-word path that anyone can possibly have.
Yeah, he is your legally guaranteed government offer N-word pass. Hey. Do we have any interesting news from Germany? Because I think that the situation
Talking
is
about
kinda
the
settled.
economy, and it's a bit dull. I'll be honest.
Yeah,
Literally,
I'm,
about our industry.
Oh,
Demonstrations are winding down, so I'm starting to head home on my side. If the stream is still going by the time I get home, I can have a slightly better connection. But yeah, if the news is also winding down, I'm not sure if it's really that worth it.
Yeah, honestly, I don't think we're getting much. Well, the next actual results will be in an hour and a half, so I think everyone's just vamping until then.
I mean,
Yeah, an hour and a half is long. If it was like half an hour, that would be fine. An hour and a half might be long, especially if the exit polls have been pretty consistent up until now.
I mean, every single one we've shown has given us the same results, I think.
Yeah, like the best one the AfD is doing is at 20.1%, and like that's not that much.
Oh
better.
man,
Yeah,
the
that
gains,
is
the gains.
Really consistent.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's this one. Hey, the Germans are good at statistics, I guess. Let's not worry about that. Well, I don't know. Like, I would say that it's still rather concerning that the AfD managed to get this much votes.
Oh yeah. for
Do we
sure.
know what's the voter turnout? Do we have any numbers on that?
I do not know. Let's see. Voter turnout.
Does anyone have an election map? Have you been putting that up on screen? I would be curious to
There's no
see
result.
I've been pulling up the map I showed you before stream, the one from Reuters, but there's no data filled in on it.
Okay.
We have nothing.
Yeah, because the thing that's really funny is looking at a map that shows a bunch of different stats, whether it's like unemployment level, average income, some like industrial things, or pollution quality, as well as political indicators. and you can always see such a super clear border between East and West Germany, even though theoretically the country has been reunified. It's kind of really funny to see just like the literal scars of history on the country still.
So Anthony in chat says 83% voter turnout, which
Whoa.
if
I
that's the
way
voter
higher from
turnout, that is insanely scary. And Noma Piet, the federal returning office says provisional result would come after midnight. Well, let me just try to find some information.
I wonder if Olivia Olberg showed up in chat tonight.
She
She
did.
did. We were chatting.
You did? Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah. She said Viktor Orban's Hungary is far superior to Giorgia Meloni's Italy.
And
Huh,
Bulgaria.
Of course, Olivia Olberg would have that position.
Also, she said that Meloni should go more to the right. Voter turnout 52% from what I'm seeing over here.
All right. So this ZDF one has Sarah Wagner actually making the parliament at 5%.
Yeah.
Any news on FDP? Yeah, I always get it wrong. Is it FDP or FPD? FDP, right?
The Free Democrats.
Yes.
They're at 4.
So are okay. So they're still at the moment still below the threshold. Man, if they miss the threshold by like 0.1%, they're gonna be super angry about that.
It'll be hilarious.
I would like to remind you that a smaller Bulgarian fascist party failed to get into parliament by 25 votes in the last election.
It was beautiful.
Nice.
It
I
was
mean,
beautiful.
it is especially ironic for the FDP because they are the reason there are elections happening.
Yeah,
today.
they were in government. They chose this.
Well, you know.
Yeah,
President
they're
James-
the one who fucked up the government coalition and caused the current situation. So, kind of on them, yeah.
And what was their ideological thing they were trying to protect? That the government should not spend money.
I'm
Yep.
so tired of like lib economists going, we shouldn't spend. Look, I'm not saying like, yeah, I think billionaires will get us all killed, but let's be very clear, economists are giving them the ammunition. I just want to be sure you all understand this one.
Also, like, guys, we ran like a global command economy for like a year during COVID. Like, the economics is what
It
we
was
wanted.
fine.
It was fine.
Like, as a matter of fact, it worked out. It was when we stopped doing it that we started having problems. But yeah, they do seem to be rather obsessed with the debt break. Look, I don't know, like, for the record,
Hey, if they don't make parliament, it looks good for the debt break. That's for sure.
yeah, the debt break's gone. I just want to, like, I'm not saying that it's unreasonable to put a limit on how much your government can borrow or spend or stuff like that. But I want to point out that the two countries in which I know it existing now, both times it has only been used for political reasons. It has never been there for reasons. Like, the debt ceiling in America is just only used so Republicans can throw tantrums. Like, every time America hits the debt ceiling and there is five more black people without insurance. It's just what the fucking, that's what it happens. Nobody ever cuts spending on things that affect rich people. It's always like, ooh, we need to cut social security. No, you don't. Fuck you. What else do you want me to tell you? But yeah. By the way, if anybody in chat wants to like ask questions and stuff like that,
I
this
put
is
in
your
a bunch
chance.
of new graphics. for you to pull up.
Okay, let's.
There's
have a
actually
look.
something hilarious. So Alice was more unpopular personally than Olaf Scholz, who is very unpopular, mind you.
Alright, let's have a look. So, grab the first. This is what are we looking up here because I do not speak any German. This is, I'm assuming, results.
Which one are you pulling up?
The top one, the one on top you post.
This is the results, yes, by
Yeah,
percent.
so-
This is the 730 projection.
I mean, so we have BSW getting in.
CDU went down a little bit in this one, and the AfD went up a little bit in this one, and SPD went down a tiny bit.
And
And
yeah,
Lincoln went
and,
down a tiny bit. And
and-
Gruna.
and FDP are gone, BSW is in. That's what I'm seeing here. Alright. This is actually how much their votes have changed, right?
Yes.
So the Linke 3.8, which they look dead, but they didn't. Green down by 2.3, didn't. Is that actually how much Greens are down? I mean, I have no reason to doubt this graph. I don't know. But okay. So CDU small gain, SP major loss, AFD major gain, and the rest, well, FDP major loss. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that the third one is the seats in parliament based on the
Yep.
results.
Yep.
Okay.
Tryon, about the live being unlisted, wait, let me check something. Oh yeah. I think you need to do that in the same spot on OBS as where you updated the stream title.
It doesn't let
If you
me
go in the
make
same plot,
any changes.
if you go in the edit thing for the YouTube stream title,
No, it
you
says
should have.
this YouTube event cannot be edited. Probably because
that's
it's
weird.
already live.
That's annoying. Oh, I don't think I can edit it from my phone. If I had access to my computer, I would be able to, I think. Let me see what I can do. We have a new stream guest.
No, we do.
Ooh.
Who we can't hear yet.
Oh, yes. I am here to hijack.
No,
Hello.
welcome.
Great.
Feel free to. I would.
Yeah,
Hi,
do you
guys.
want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. Thank you for starting this stream so early and taking us through the election results, or I mean the predictions so far. I am Otilia. I'm joining on behalf of EUNU, which is this youth organization. We're currently based in Brussels, but we're a bit from all over Europe, actually. Our membership is pan-European, and yeah, we're excited to be here and bringing a bit of the EU Brussels bubble perspective to this whole conversation, in case you wanted more EU, right?
Oh, why would we ever want any more EU? What would ever
And to-
compel me to want that?
No, but I mean more of the EU bubble, because people roll their eyes a bit at the EU bureaucracy. But I'm here to defend it. I'm gonna play a bit of devil's advocate.
Actually, Rote, could you please lead the stream for 5 to 10 minutes? I would like to take a bathroom break. This is not my opinion of the EU bubble is expressed in bodily function form. It is just I've been sitting here for 2 hours, so I'll be
It's
back
okay,
in a few
and-
minutes.
If you could be rather prompt, because I also have to do the same.
I
thing.
see. Okay, we have it on topic. Let's go.
But Attilia, like, what's your thoughts about the outcome?
Well, so I'm not pleasantly surprised. I'm a bit happy. I thought it would be worse, so I'm not exactly sure if it's not that bad just because I had catastrophical expectations, or if it's actually not that bad. But I mean, the initial exit polls looked okay for what we were expecting to see. Now they're starting to become a bit closer to what we're actually expecting. I was just checking the official website to see how things are changing. But what I think is a good surprise is the left party, which we expected to be at like 5%, and even that we thought it would be amazing, and still look, it's 8, huh? And it's looking like it's staying there. Like the polls are changing, but they're staying in there. And I have a few thoughts about that. So I'll be happy to share, and then a bit of like, I don't know, my expectations of how this is gonna all play out in at the European level, because that's obviously like the juice that we're really interested in.
Yeah, of course. And yeah, I think it's the same thing I was saying earlier. Out of all the outcomes that we could have had, this is definitely one of the better ones if things kind of stay where they're at. And I think because of like the massive protests, it has made the likelihood of a CDU AfD coalition very, very low, because there was big blowback. Like, that's just the reality of it. But yeah, I mean, tell me your thoughts about Linka, or also like the Greens. Like, they came back too. Like, these are huge shifts in like a very small amount of time.
Yeah. Well, actually, what I wanted to speak about when talking about youth and vote and whatever. So first, I was just sent this statistics by a friend, actually, who was he was showing me exactly the share of eligible voters by age group. So look, 18 to 20 years old, you have 3.4 of the population that's eligible to vote. That's not a lot. Okay, and then 21, 29 years old, you have 11.1. And we know that that Die Linke grew because of the young vote. So I think what we should take here into account is the amount of young people they managed to demobilize. And as you were pointing out earlier that I heard, it's people who probably didn't vote before. Because I mean, if you know what I mean, it's usually the left that doesn't vote because they abstain as a protest, and then the far right will always go and vote, right? So I think what they did really well is they managed to mobilize people, and I have my thoughts on why, and I want to share that. But first, I wanted to bring something a bit more boring in the conversation, which is this youth survey that was just published by the European Parliament. I was fortunate enough to get a leak before, so that's a bit that's quite interesting. Just in the way that people are consuming news about politics and how preferential they are towards social media and actually TV. So it's actually really interesting. Let me see if I'm not digitally confused here. Let's see if I can put it on the chat for everyone to see it. No. It should be on the Parliament website, actually. If I can find anyone. Otherwise, okay, I'll tell you, and then I'll just drop the link as well so you can see, because they have a nice.
It'd be very interesting.
But then, in terms of like the priorities that young people have for the EU, the top one now with 40% is actually the cost of living, and then obviously the environment, which has always been there, it's around like 33%. And then when they were asked about the most important values, they were talking about human rights, democracy, and peace. So we really see some big topics here, especially this peace one is clearly something a bit more like progressive. But then you also have like freedom of speech and thought and whatever, so you can see where that comes from narrative-wise, right? But it seems to me that these are consistent, and these have been quite consistent in terms of percentages and hierarchy since 2021, and so the Eurobarometers and youth surveys that the EU has done in these years, it's been quite the same. To me, it's a question of the youth recognizes it has a problem. Actually, a quarter of young people are at risk of poverty in Europe, which is insane. So the youth does have this problem. And then you have different parties that are trying to solve it. I don't think the youth anymore is interested in this like middle of the ground parties. They're gonna vote extreme right or radical left. They're gonna vote one of them, you know. But so far, there hasn't been anyone on the left to speak. And that's what I wanted to get at. I think that's what the Linke did very, very well. They spoke, they were loud, and they had this strong, even like anti-capitalist, whatever, let's change how the things work, and then a strong anti-fascist rhetoric. And that, I think, brought people out, and it got them the votes that got them here. And which is something that every chance I get to speak with MEPs here in Brussels, especially the progressive ones, I'll tell to them, and they don't listen most of the times. I tell them, look, as a young person in civil society, I tell you, please scream. For God's sakes, please scream, because these people on the right are screaming all the times and you're not matching them. You need to occupy space. You need to occupy media space. You need to be up on the agenda. Scream, for God's sake. And they did.
Yeah.
And it worked.
I want to bounce. Sorry, I thought you. I'm having a slight delay. I want to bounce off of that with something that I noticed in there was an interview with Scholz not too long ago. One of his rare interviews in English. Where they addressed the topic of Israel-Palestine, and it was the question that I've been wanting to ask Scholz for such a long time, which is if eventually the ICJ does come to the conclusion that what's happening in Gaza is a genocide, what would that mean for Germany's legacy in terms of having supported the Israeli side of the war for this long? And just it wasn't so much the answer by Scholz, which was a really bad answer. It was just like completely avoiding the question. But it was the fact that he just sounded like a corpse, and it was like, is this really the chancellor of the German government at the moment and the leader of the SPD party? That we need stronger leaders on the. I mean, even if we're talking SPD with that center left, but we need stronger leaders on the left that are able to go toe to toe with the firebrands of the far right, and that's something that is kind of missing, I feel, especially in center-left politics. There are some firebrands on the far left, but in center-left politics, there's just a complete vacuum of charisma that needs to change for that brand of politics to even survive the next couple of decades.
Exactly. And there has to be a bit of a reshuffling as well in cabinets and in communication staff as well, you know, like as a policy communication person, I can tell you that we need to learn from the far right, as horrible as it sounds, but we need to learn from them because they're hitting the spot. We just have to change the words that we put on the viral videos, on the discourse, you know. But they started to nail the technique. We really have to copy, and we have to match them or occupy their space, basically. So
And it's frustrating because the thing that center right and center left parties are learning from the success of the far right is we need to copy their policies. But
No.
what they're not copying is their style, is their aesthetic, and the just the enthusiasm that they managed to get. It's like the centrist parties are trying to do. We're going to do far right policies, but in the most boring way possible, and we think that's what's going to save us as a political movement, basically. And it's just completely backwards, because studies show that validating far right policies by adopting them actually accelerates the bleeding of your voters towards the far right anyway.
Yeah, and you were speaking about Romania. I just before. I think it's something that we've seen a bit with Romania's far right party AUR. That because obviously they were overtaken by this Georgescu guy because he came in like really like fascist, like legionary endorser, whatever, everything. While the our party kind of tried to appease Meloni and dial down a bit their discourse, and they lost votes. And now after the elections, and after, of course, they don't want to support Georgescu anymore and all that, they switch back. They're back to being full on fascists because they saw that it's not good for them to dilute. So I think we should, you know, do the same on the other side as well and be a bit more firm on what we ask, basically. So
I mean, you know, as the resident left-wing propagandist over here, and I should really like get myself a couple posters. As the resident screams that you should unionize guy, one of the things that I have seen a lot, quite a significant portion, at least in Bulgaria, of younger people, they want that is a strange way to phrase it. It seems that a lot of the drawing power of right-winger candidates appears to be left-winger policies with racism, for a lack of a better way to phrase it. A lot of people around my age, so as you haven't had the chance to introduce me, a very big point of my personal success over the last years, I managed to get myself a mortgage, which seems insane, you know, the achievement, a 28-year-old with a mortgage, you know, unheard of, impossible. This is like the insanity level, and a lot of my friends are like, yeah, man, this should be happening to everybody because obviously you should have a home. And then a few of my friends were like, yeah, and we can't have it because of refugees. And I'm like, I don't want to bother y'all. No Syrian came in here and just like was like, no mortgage for you, stamps no on the papers. That just doesn't happen. But it seems that there is a lot of desire for more left-wing policies. Ironically, also in chat of the stream, people are like getting there and then sprinkling in the hatred. Like, I'm sorry to the people in chat. I'm not gonna name and shame you actually. But a person said here that like pensions are the worst things that happen here because old people keep voting for essentially conservative politics and be told it's okay, we don't need to change anything. Yeah, and I think that a lot of the right-wingers party drawing power is coming from being able to phrase what is essentially left-winger politics with. But actually, it's not the economic system that's the problem. It's not the fact that we've been doing economy stupid for 30 years. You see, it's this brown homie, get him. And there is a lack of opposing voices who are just willing to call out, well, that the sky is blue. That I'm sorry, this billionaire doesn't need 3 yachts. I need a house. It's not that hard.
No, it's exactly what the survey also says is like these are the priorities of the youth. Like there's one problem. We have the one problem it's on the plate is at the middle of the table, and it's just the parties trying to like serve you like the I don't know, the side next to it. Like how do you want it? Like we're all gonna promise you to solve the same problem. It's just about a bit about side. Do you want a side of taxing the rich? Do you want a side of kicking out migrants? Do you want a side like it's about that? I think we're all essentially promising the same, you know.
Yeah, but I think also like there's a fundamental difference is that they don't actually have to achieve any of those things. They can sell like anti-capitalism, not actually do any of them, be in basically a front for very wealthy oligarchs, and that works because at the end of the day, they're not selling material politics. Like they might sell ideas that sound lefty-ish, but at the end of the day, they need material politics to not be part of the conversation. It has to be the culture war. It has to be the trans people, the migrants, the Muslims, the blah blah, because that is how you maintain a forever enemy that you can always point to. And it means you are no longer judged by your actual governance. You are judged by how performative you are, and that is very, very important in modern politics. And that's how they're able to game, you know, the media situation that they're so dominant so well, because if we're not judging them on actually how they govern and just like how they perform well and they control a bunch of influencers, news agencies, blah blah blah, then they can just easily sell whatever fantasy they are. I mean, that's how Donald Trump is able to do like things that actually harm his own people, but he has such a holistically contained propaganda world that his people just don't know, and they never will know because they're just trapped in it.
Okay,
Yep.
sorry to slightly kidnap the conversation, but there is two comments I want to address in chat. The first one is by Jason. Is it Jason Ryan? I'm sorry. Names. You just spoke about how difficult it is for a young person to get affordable housing, but the high housing prices benefits the elderly. The high price housing benefits the elderly that got a house through sensible policies 30 years ago. Those policies don't exist anymore because rich people want to own a bunch of housing and make you rent it. Yes, it benefits the elderly. They're not the perpetrators of this. They just end up, essentially, when it comes to voting, acting in a marginally collaborationist fashion because they think they're part of the in-group, which they're not. An old working person is just as fucked by the system as me, you, and everybody else. It's just that they managed to get away with some more things prior to, well, phrasing the fucking occurring. And the other thing is somebody above that said how to fucking pay for the pension system would have been different if there was a stock-based retirement option. My good sir, my good madam, my good person of non-binary specifications, the US has a stock-based retirement system. That means that your ability to retire is entirely stapled to number go up. You are essentially empowering corporations to abuse you so you can retire. That's what you're doing. A government-backed or government-operated pension system means that we all get a fair chance at certain age to maybe get a few years of chill before we kick the bucket. A stock-based ones means that 2008 happens and you're working at 80 because number must go up. You're stapling your future to number going up. And let me fucking tell it to you, a thing trying to grow infinitely in a closed system is cancer. That's the definition of cancer. It cells growing infinitely in a closed system until they kill you. So, Yeah, retirement age in Bulgaria is 67. I'm aware I'm not fucking retiring. I'm not stupid. But that means we should get a government in power that would address that. Not give the power to billionaires. Stop giving them power. They fleeced you for all your money. Why do you want to give them more? No, you don't get money. You think you get money. You don't. There's people in America working in their 80s. I know one of them. He's a colleague of mine. Homie is ancient. My grandma's 82. This homie is 74. He's still working. How the fuck would you ever think this is a good idea? It's elder abuse is what it is. Sorry.
I actually
I know an 80-year-old who's working very old right now, who's working very late in his life right now. His name was Joe Biden, and he just retired.
Hey, Donald is not much younger.
Yeah, I know. I wanted to go back to what Rota and Natalia were saying earlier about the dynamic of what I wanted to. The point that I wanted to hit on was the dynamic of how Donald Trump, even when he is in government, even when he is the president, manages to portray himself as an outsider and as the person who was raging against the system when he is in control of the system. And I'm kind of wondering, because we haven't seen that many far-right politicians achieve power in Europe yet. I mean, we could look into how that happened with Orban, what's going on with Meloni. I think Meloni is more the embodiment of the system and it's kind of embracing that. But I would be curious to see if the National Rally in France, if AfD achieve power, if they would manage to walk that same tightrope as Trump, of managing to present themselves as both the outsider while being in charge of the government. Because right now, a large reason why they're able to keep on growing is because they are the opposition, the eternal opposition party that has never managed to get in power, and that's why they're able to use this argument of you've tried every other party, try us now because we're actually going to change things up, and eventually that's going to stop working once they're in power.
Yeah, and I'm curious also for the United States to see the bottom line, like what's going to happen in 4 years, and what the morale of the population is going to be after 4 years of policies like this. Because honestly, I mean, and also for the international community, I'm just wondering if we're ever going to catch a break, because I feel like since 20th of January, Trump put his hand here and we hasn't let go yet. It's like we've been living in tension, and it's gonna build up, and it's actually a topic that we are addressing in civil society. It's activist burnout, because I need to quote for the Romanians here in the chat, because I know there's some. This is Cristina from Reconectat, which is a great a psychology podcast in Romania, who said this during an event. The feeling that activists feel right now is loss. A deep feeling of loss, because we're losing rights, we're losing elections, we're losing seats, we're losing friends, we're losing, values that we believed in. We're just continuously losing, and it does lead to burnout in the end, and of just disillusionment and loss of morale and all of that. And we really have to find ways to self-regulate, to cope with the feeling, because in the end, this is a marathon. It's a long run. If we want to do something for society, we have to be able to run for miles. And it's important how we create systems and we help each other manage this. And in situations like this, where you have something that the Trump administration is announcing every day, one more scandalous than the other, and one more enraging and more terrifying than the other, it's very hard to find peace to breathe and self-regulate, as an activist especially.
I think you hit the nail on the head, because when you look at what's happened in the U.S., you compare the first and the second inaugurations of Donald Trump. The first inauguration, there was that huge, I think it was called the Pussy March or something like that, or they had the pussy hats on, like the pink hats and everything. There was just these huge rallies against Donald Trump for weeks after his first inauguration, whereas this time around, it's been just complete. We were talking about it with Rory, who's a journalist for LBC, who came on stream a couple of weeks ago, and he was in the U.S. During inauguration. He was pointing out that just like DC was dead on inauguration day. There were just like a gathering of maybe a dozen people near the National Mall, and same thing between election day and the inauguration. The resistance seems to have completely melted away, because people are now like resigned to the idea that, well, we tried something last time, it didn't do anything, so we're just going to give up. And that's kind of what we're seeing.
Or they're being silenced or defunded, which is something that's been a huge deal here in Brussels with, essentially the far right in coalition with the right, the center right, trying to effectively kill the Green Deal. And so they're starting to insert knives, regulation by regulation. And then also by cutting funds from NGOs who do lobbying for this. Like they're trying to dismantle, let's say, the lobbying in Brussels, but of course not the lobby that they favor. I mean, it's never the automotive, it's never the oil. No. It's the pesky lobbyists who are, God forbid, trying to save the planet or something, or are advocating for reproductive rights. Those are the lobbyists we should actually fear.
How dare you?
Of course.
Why do you want to have rights? What do you need those for?
like I got so frustrated because I did a video on the Belgian elections or the Belgian coalition, and people in the comments were being like, "Oh, I think you're being a bit alarmist." I mean, sure, he's like a far right Flemish nationalist, and there's a big reason why we never had one of them lead the country before. But how bad could it be? And I'm like, dude, like what? Like this guy, his whole claim to fame is saying like Wallonians are fucking poor people and degenerate. Like that's his main position. Like how can you can say, oh well, you know, they made a coalition, so that's a good thing. It's democratic, right? And I'm like, no, bro, that's not how that works. Like I'm so tired
How
of this
bad
argument.
can it be?
No, I'm so tired of this
Yeah,
argument that like the
how
only
bad
way.
can it be is the.
Oh,
Damn
sorry.
it, we're sorry. Go ahead and finish. Yeah.
Sorry, but like I'm so tired of this argument that like the only way we're a proper liberal democracy is if we're able to have every fascist represented in every aspect of our society. Like I'm sorry, you're not a healthy democracy if you have like 100% fascists and you're still having elections. Like that's not how that works. Like we don't judge how good a democracy is by how many fascists it can contain before it blows up.
Yeah. How bad can it be is a question that we are unfortunately going to have to answer in the next few years.
The worst thing about the how bad can it be argument, it's almost inevitably followed when it turns out pretty bad is the answer to how bad. It's almost inevitably followed by the follow-up line of, oh, it would be worse if the left was in charge. And if you ask for any evidence, usually the evidence is, no, I don't know, I feel like it. I want to do one of these every once in a while. It's just... Yeah. Yeah, I'm healthy, look at all my tumors is a very good explanation of why this is not working.
I think
Yeah,
something. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Go.
What they're not realizing and what they fail to completely put into perspective is that these parties who they think they're like, oh yeah, they're fascist light basically. They are the gateway drug. Like it's the last before it breaks loose. So we are like in a lot of countries in Europe, we are reaching that final stage before full on fascism, and people don't realize that. And it sounds alarmist, and maybe they're not the last. Maybe we need one more coalition with the far right party in government, but we're getting there, and that's what we should be aware of. You know.
You have microdosed Musk. Have you tried mainlining Hitler? That is.
Is that from chat?
No, but I wish it was. Yeah, Ricardo pointing out that essentially right wingers eventually go to something Soviet, something China, and the recent classic something Venezuela. Just quickly.
Yeah.
Hey guys,
No,
never forget the Nazis were National Socialists. That's the worst thing about them, apparently.
Yeah, the argument of like I've already made a video about the Alice Weidel Elon Musk conversation about how Hitler was a communist and a socialist. But the thing that drives me the most crazy about that argument is the fact that when you actually speak to the kind of people who make that argument, when they're not making that argument, the thing they say about Hitler is something along the lines of, yeah, but he wasn't completely bad, right? He did some good things for the economy. And these are people who like market themselves as anti-socialist because socialism is bad for the economy. So it's like, which is it? Did he do things that were good for the economy, or was he a socialist? Or like, because you can't have it both ways while being an anti-socialist on the economy things. And the reality is like neither was true. Like the doing good things for the economy when the good thing for the economy you're doing is basing all of your economy on war is not something that is good in the long term.
Yeah. Are you implying that Russians are not having a lovely lives right now when their economy is based on going to war? Don't you want to go to Russia? Huh? Would you not like to have a common block with no internal heating and maybe an outside toilet? If Putin is feeling spicy these days. Yeah, I'm sorry for those of you who are not from Eastern Europe. 30% of homes in Russia have outside toilets because they were not built with a toilet in your house. So, if you're in the EU and you have a toilet in your house, vote carefully, spend some time thinking about it.
And what do we do if we're in the EU and we don't have a toilet in our house?
So that's fucking different problem. You should ask my grandma. She has that problem. I am not dealing with that.
What was I gonna say? Yeah, no, I think one of the this is completely off topic. It's just that I've been working on a section of my next video about this. I think anyone who's complaining about immigration and how it's making every EU country dangerous just needs to look at the stats for the violent crime rates in their country over the last 30 years. And what they will see is that there's nothing that compares to the 90s or the early 2000s anywhere in the EU. And in the grand scheme of things, the European Union is incredibly safe right now, and they really need to, like, the argument just doesn't hold up to the facts when you're actually looking at the stats.
I mean, I also just think, I made this argument the other day online, like, you can make a very strong pro-democracy, patriotic, pro-republicanism argument for immigration now that I think is much stronger than any nonsense the nationalists are going to pull. Because if someone wants to move to this continent when we're under, actual threat, that is a noble thing, that we should think of it in that way. And that any of these nationalists that are like, no one should ever come to this place, that's literally weakening us on so many levels.
I mean, if you want to go for cynical with it, service guarantee citizenship is always an option. Like, we haven't brought up the fact that Americans do that. But I want to point out we've accidentally started a civil war in chat. Romania is about to split. One person called the Romanian Renew Party losers, the other one calls them Chads. So expect a fist fight in the middle of a square in Bucharest very soon. Dear Romanians in chat, please solve this internally before we have to intervene. The last time we had a civil war, we had to intervene and it didn't go well for us. But
to be honest, I agree. I agree with Raresh, actually. That's how you pronounce, by the way, Raresh.
No, I've been getting it right this entire time since he's been showing up in chat.
Justice has been done. No, but essentially, so I think it was a Holocaust Memorial Day, and then this guy who's like basically the economist for a Renew Party, which has been going down since.
We are starting very strong.
Yeah. I mean, he's not the face anymore, but he's kind of like writing the manifesto and all the economics behind it, and he's a complete moron, to be honest. And he went on TikTok to literally say on Holocaust Memorial Day that socialism produced the Holocaust, and that's why we're here, and we should say never again to socialism. And obviously it caused a storm, because everyone says, like, are you politically illiterate? Like, how are you, like, in command in a party like this, and you're pretending to want to be like prime minister one day or something like that? Like, it's a joke. It's a joke.
Look,
I don't think anyone can take I don't think anyone actually believes that. Any politician actually believes that, unless they're like, Trump and they're not a politician.
Exactly.
I think the problem is that so many voters, like I think that a big problem is that the population has been depoliticized over the last 30 years. To the point where so many voters are politically illiterate enough to actually believe that. Oh, it has socialism in the name, so that must be true. And I know, like, very well-educated, smart people, if they're just not very well-educated in politics, who that makes sense to them, and they actually run with that as the explanation of what Nazism was. And that is extremely frustrating, but that's the point that we're at this point.
Sorry, Arares in chat just decided to drop the biggest joke, which is his problem was that the Holocaust was done by the state, it should have been privatized. Arares, I don't want to bother you, it was privatized, but at this point you have dropped the biggest banger we can handle. Also, just to ease tension, since we insulted the Romanian politician, the Bulgarian Prime Minister is a cunt and a wanker. The FPO guy in Austria doesn't know what a book is. Meloni should hit her head in a wall, and have I gone through all of them? I'm sorry, you're new to here, not aware. There is a €50 bounty on whoever can get their hands and mail to me the wallpapers of Marie Le Pen. That bid is still open. I demand the wallpapers. Anyway, please, go ahead.
Wallpapers?
Yes.
What do you mean?
I want the
What is-
wallpapers
what
of
is
Marie Le Pen. What?
Are you making like a Catholic reliquary of like Marine Le Pen items? Like,
No, she just had an interview where she was trying to be moderate about immigrants and was like, these immigrants are coming here, stealing from the state, stealing people's wallpapers. So, as somebody who's not French, I now demand Marie Le Pen's wallpapers. I want them. That's that. Yes, welcome to the This Is Not Even Remotely Chill portion of the stream, where all shits have been thrown off the window, so please, go ahead, you were making a good point.
No, I was just trying to make a point that in Romania, this anti-leftism, anti-socialism and everything, it's systemic, and it's been work of propaganda of all these years after the evolution. You know, when
I think
basically
this is more of an Eastern Europe thing to an
but it's been
extent.
institutionalized.
Yes,
I
it
don't know
is
exactly
definitely institutionalized.
In the sense of our former president institutionalized anti-socialism by condemning the Communist Party in parliament, and it was like a grand a grand ceremony. He had like a whole committee working on it with like a bunch of bias like researchers, let's say. And then of course it was made into a whole procession. And the thing is, like, he is a man of the communist system. He worked for the security services technically.
The classic,
was-
the classic.
Of course.
Of course.
He was-
No, I'm sorry. This is every time. Every time I learn about
Communism was so bad. All those things I did personally, real bad.
every time I learn
Tell
about
you from
Romania.
first-hand experience.
Sorry, every time I learn about Romania, I'm even more and more convinced that Bulgaria and Romania are not two separate countries. We're the same country with two corrupt governments. It's the same
I mean,
shit here. Half of our politicians
Didn't
are former
BBC
agents.
literally
of
flip
national
your
security.
countries around not too long ago?
Didn't what?
Didn't BBC have a map where they put Bulgaria and Romania and Bulgaria not too long ago?
Yeah, but what's new? Who?
Exactly. Look at any Western-made movie, and you'll see, like, if they happen to show a map of Eastern Europe, it's all like it's gibberish. Like, there's nothing. in
Like,
there,
I'm sorry.
orientative.
If you all know the Terminal movie, the one where Tom Hanks is stuck in a terminal, he's speaking Bulgarian in it, but it's so clear that like whoever the person teaching him Bulgarian wasn't Bulgarian, because my man was pulling Bulgarian with a Serbian accent, and I hadn't heard that in my life. That was a new experience to me, you know. 'Cause,
Hey,
yeah.
maybe it was calculated to be the fictional Eastern European country of Krakosia that didn't exist, and maybe in that fictional country they spoke Bulgarian with a Serbian accent.
Sure, why not?
Serbian.
So that is pretty much it's just Serbian. No, actually, it's Macedonian. I would like to tell you that probably Bulgarian with Serbian. I'm not gonna rag on the Macedonians. They've done nothing wrong to me. But yeah, this is commonplace in Eastern Europe that the political figures of the day were definitely former like agents of national security. And it's always called national security. In each Eastern European country, it's just national security. And it has the powers of God. And yeah, they kept infiltrating people into political parties until their people got elected. And now we are trying to fight corruption, and it's going.
I know, but it happens so that somehow they don't stay on the left necessarily. They go go right wing.
Oh, they go heavily right wing.
I can give you an example not from Eastern
Sorry?
Like I can give you an example not from Eastern Europe. Like for example, like in the US, right, you had the parties did the flip. And it's also important to remember, like, the Democratic Party of the South was like the party of segregation, but that was like its own kind of carved off separate thing. And then in around the basically around like Reagan and then like the early 90s, you had Democratic parties in the South do a complete 180 switch. But I don't mean like individuals left, as in like they took the entire party structure and flipped it over into a Republican Party. And then you had people who had been like, and like this seems like bizarre because like you're thinking, okay, if they're segregationists, they must have like really right-wing economic policies too. It was a very strange, like more populist, progressive economic system, but very racist at the same time. And all they did was just abandon that part of it, absorb all this kind of like Reagan trickle down stuff, but then tied it in with the intense evangelical rise that was happening. And a lot of these people who were elected into office, like sometimes they became a congressman as a Democrat, they suddenly were like, I believe in Jesus and I'm the most hardcore Republican ever. And like even for example, the sitting senator from Louisiana was originally elected as a Democrat and was a Democrat for like 30 years.
Is it
And
Strong
so-
Thurmond? Please tell me it was Strong Thurmond.
No, it's Kennedy. Kennedy, the idiot one who was talking about how he's aroused and he loves eggs.
I think I just
Unfortunately,
realized.
Louisiana's produced a lot of the exceptional psychos in this particular
Hey,
administration.
do not insult Huey Long. Do insult
No,
Huey
no, no,
Long,
no,
just in
I mean-
moderation.
No, I mean the current contemporary ones. Mike Johnson, Louisiana. Amy Coney Barrett, Louisiana. Kennedy, Louisiana. This other dude whose name I'm losing, he's also another idiot. But like we have a plethora of nutcases that
Hey,
we have
feel
sent to
free
the
to
Trump
send
administration.
Georgia a thank you note for like having Marjorie Taylor Greene, so you don't have to take the blame on that one.
No,
I think I just realized right now that the argument of the Nazis were actually socialists because it's in the name is about as politically literate. Maybe like literally it's the European version of, hey, the Democratic Party was the party that was in favor of slavery, right?
Oof. Yikes.
no,
This
it's
is where
it's a
we've gone.
textual literalist approach to politics. Exactly how it's written is the only thing that exists.
Surely,
Yeah.
guys. Why do you ever learn to interpret text?
The European Union is actually just a trade union. Sorry, it's a name.
No, actually, I would like to inform you that the European Union is a workers' union. It's in the name. We've all been negotiating rights over here. We've been having one long strike from going to war from the last 40 years. The European Union hasn't existed for 40 years. Don't worry about that. To the point, it's a workers' union that objects to war.
But maybe to also think about what we were talking about earlier. I think my big takeaway out of this is like I said earlier, like the German left isn't dead, but also like opportunities exist. There is moments for change. We, like you said earlier, Attilia, there is opportunity to really push progressive politics if we take seriously the communications aspect of this, selling the politics and doing it in interesting, fun, and charismatic ways. And this is going to be requiring political parties to put up money to fund communications, not just party communications, but also influencers and do all the stuff that the right has built. I was reflecting that just in the last 2 weeks, there's been like back-to-back multiple far-right international conferences held in Europe and the U.S. And like, if you think about just the crazy amount of stuff they did at just the 3 days of CPAC, there's nothing comparable on any of the left groups, like whether it's the Greens, Linke, or S&D. Like, nobody's doing anything remotely close to what the right's doing.
Admittedly, nobody on the left has as like crazy of a dog whistle as a should we call it a Brannan salute? Bannon salute. What do we call it? It's a fucking Nazi salute. That's what it is. Fascist cunts is
Yeah,
what
we
they are.
we could just call it that. That's okay.
But yeah, no.
But it shows me the hypocrisy that even the most like sovereignists, that they still see the value in European cooperation, like they still meet all together. Not how they can be separatist on their own, but they meet together to discuss. This is amazing.
Yeah, it's fantastic, isn't it?
And it seems to be, because I want to get here, actually, let me have the audacity to bring it back to the topic of the crazy.
I was trying to get us there.
I appreciate. Thank you for the segue. No, but just to talk a bit about Merz and the EU, and this is more about like my reflections on what's happening to the EU right now. And I want to piggyback off of what I said on sovereignists who come together. So I don't know if you noticed, or maybe it's just my impression, but it seems to me that I hear about exits less and less. Because the parties that were advocating for the exits, that's my theory. Now
the FPÖ is big into exit again.
Yeah.
To where? Yo, in the middle of the continent.
I'm aware.
You're gonna exit into a quick invasion, is where you're going.
Well, I think it depends on how right they are, because it seemed to me so. Okay, when the EU was all about rights, the Green Deal, whatever, they didn't like it, and they were pulling this like this fit like a kid, like okay, so you don't want to play by my rules? Okay, I'm gonna take my football, I'm gonna go inside. Bye. So they were trying to all exit the EU, but now that they managed to infiltrate the structure and try to erode the European Union from within, there is no longer this aggressive rhetoric for exit, at least not on the scale that everyone was putting their exit out of their hat, as a populist politician, Now they're trying to make friends with each other in the council. They're finding their peers already. They're making some coalitions. They have more representation in the European Parliament for the far right. So they're getting cozy inside the EU. However, what I feel like they're trying to do is to decentralize it from Brussels, and that's how they're trying to pull it apart. So they're not going to exit individually. They're just going to pull it apart to the point where it literally stays maybe a trade union, and that's about it, because they don't like the concentration of power in Brussels, and they will make it so that the decisions are more taken on the member state, that you see more directives rather than regulations, more like let us do our thing and let it be an amicable, like, gentleman's agreement whenever we go together and do something, but don't impose it on us. And so this I wanted to about if you want to make a point, Rotel, because you had a different point about the exit, and then I'll continue.
No. I think
Do you mind? Do you mind if I hop in on this? Because
Please.
I think what you just said was incredibly true, and it's the thing that I was screaming about after the
Oh, he's gone. Dave, gone.
I often get frustrated when. Sorry. Oh, am I
You
gone?
cut out for a second.
Testing 1 2.
Yeah, you back.
Okay. When I get frustrated with left-wing parties, and I think I'm not sure if this is the case with Die Linke, but it's definitely the case with Mélenchon's party in France, whose name I cannot remember right now, but it doesn't matter. The France Unbound. Yes, exactly. Is they don't advocate for an exit, but they're very cold on the EU. They do not want to be that involved in the EU, and as a result of that, they're very unenthusiastic about EU elections. And the obvious consequence of that, when the far right has been advocating against the EU and has been very strong on pushing their base to vote in EU elections so that they could strip the EU down to its bare bones, is that that we're kind of playing a very uneven field in a very unfair game, and at that point when the left doesn't want to get involved in EU elections, and that's why to advocate for an exit, and now we're seeing a situation where the reason why they were frustrated with the EU was the loss of sovereignty, and most of the loss of sovereignty is you don't get to do whatever you want on human rights, you don't get to do whatever you want on worker rights, and if they manage to keep the things that are financially beneficial for their countries, but also strip the aspects of the EU that guarantee, like, minimum standards for fair trade, minimum standards for worker rights, minimum standards for European rights, for human rights. That's like all the benefits and none of the disadvantages from their point of view. So obviously they're going to be all into that situation.
Yeah, of course. But I think so. Speaking of Mélenchon, why he's a bit cold on the EU is because I think he's very orthodox on his ideology. And, like, of course, you cannot stand for the EU if the EU is a capitalist product, and if the EU is a product of Christian democracy, and it's creating inequalities in the world through its trade agreements and so on. So, and it's propagating the same capitalist system that you're so against. So I see why he's called on it. However, this is my theory. It's maybe like a Brussels bubble theory, but I think that the EU is here to stay. We're not talking about is the EU legitimate or not, because people are born in the EU. People who now vote, even if they come from Romania or soon Croatia, they've been born in the EU. They don't know a life outside of the EU. I don't remember life outside of the EU. I was 7. So I think it's not a question of like are the institutions like legitimate or not. It's just that they are here, they're here to stay, and the battle will be in which direction do we pull them? Do we make it a capitalist far right machine, or do we make it like a union of values and respect for human rights and democracy and so on? So that's gonna be the battle.
Sorry, quick updates. First of all, I do remember Bulgaria prior to the EU. It was shit. But back on topic, the result seems to be like pretty official. The CDU haven't fully announced victory, but it seems that 20 minutes ago I see articles saying that they will not have coalition talks with the AFD. So I think the results are pretty settled in stone, and it's a case of CSU SPD government. Is it SDP or SPD?
SPD.
And yeah.
Oh, by the way, that was another point that I wanted to bounce off of the previous point that Rutte made about the left investing in influencers. That is actually, to get it back to specifically German politics, if you read the investigative report that was published a year ago about the meeting between the AfD and neo-Nazis, that was actually before they talked about immigration. The first part of that report was about the fundraising that they were doing to fund a far right influencer network to start to shape the public opinion. And so, yeah, we basically need to take a page out of that book, I think, and not do it in the same way, but we need to seriously think about sorry, I for a second I thought my battery had run out. We need to seriously think about the left needs to think about how it wants to communicate, because clearly the traditional ways of communication are dead at this point.
Yeah, but I see Ricardo saying that La France Insoumise have started podcasts and Twitch and YouTube and whatever. I think, I don't know if they're growing, if it's run by the party or if it's run organically, but they've also been doing a good job on TikTok. So I've got sucked into French leftist TikTok around the elections, and their stuff is like, it's hilarious. I could not get enough. I could not get enough. I don't know if it's generated by members or if it's something that they control a bit, but even if it's planned out or not, they're onto something. And I think if they continue with that, it might help them.
I want to bring up something on this particular topic, as your boy, the union member, wants to negotiate. No. But one of the things that has been brought up, and I have talked with other people when we were trying to start like a separate Bulgarian IT personnel union that went nowhere, is the thing that we are facing an issue of communication where essentially any leftist oriented influencer would run into the problem that you have to grow organically. Well, let's face it, I've seen Cardboard more interesting than Tim Poo, but with enough money this man managed to get a following, because it's like the same strategy. They all repeat the same 5 strategies, which is like step 1, the women, step 2, the gays, step 3, something stupid eventually goes down to immigrant. And there is like, seemingly, if you put money into this, seemingly there is a certain audience that keeps come back and recycling these, because like it was the Shapiro, it's Tim Poo, now it's some new guy who got to interview Zelensky in one of the most cringe-inducing things I've ever experienced, where the man was like, but I believed Putin loves the Russian people. Bro, we been on the same planet though. And to the point, I think this is the problem that we cannot. There isn't a lot of leftist billionaires, because they wouldn't be if they were, is the problem. And just organically, such influences have to be created, which I think is a challenge. Now, Rota over here seems to have. Sorry, what am I implying, Sam?
Are you implying that Tim Poo got money from far-right governments?
Yes, I'm not only implying, I'm alleging it. As a matter of fact, I'm stating it. He can sue me for defamation if he wants to buy me another apartment. But yeah, to the point at hand, like the organic growth, while I think easier for left-wing influences, because even right-wingers feel the same issues. That's why a lot of their talking points are leftism with racism. Is that it has to grow organically, because as much as the right wingers scream the Soros, I haven't seen George Soros pop up around this channel to offer Stan a bag of money. If he does, let me know, but I find it unlikely.
Yeah, I mean, I this is something I bang on about around a lot, and like for example, I had a video that's like hit like almost 400,000 views, primarily from Romania. The video was taken down twice. I had to go through 4 appeals processes, and I'm currently in another one. They've taken my monetization from it. I'll get no money. And that happens to almost every single video I post. So you cannot have, like, I'm doing pretty well as a political influencer. Like, over the last, 8 months I've been active.
But by that he means he can afford food, maybe like once every 3 days?
No. I cannot pay my rent doing this. I've been working another job, and that's the thing. Like, you have to be able to have a full-time job, and then also do influencer stuff, because the likelihood of you being able to just live off of your views is very low. And because you're doing left-wing political content, that's not brand friendly. No big brand's going to subsidize that. And again, you're not getting subsidized by some political donor, which is what's happening on the right. Also, I mean, it's like so many levels, and the difference is so asymmetrical. And it's not even, like you were saying, like, oh, it's really good that Insomnius is doing Twitch stuff and doing this, and like I'm very happy with that. But this is still not understanding that, like, the reason that we're losing is not because it's the saying, like, seeing the tree and missing the forest. The reason we're losing is because we have a tree, they have a forest, and these are fundamentally different things. And it would, and it's also like goes down to like politicians not understanding that they're influencers in an influencer market, and they're not very good influencers generally. And this is a big problem, because if every activist and party member thought all of their channels were an opportunity to affect politics, and think about that all the time, like a lot of the right-wingers do, it would dramatically change how all of us were interacting. And more importantly, if there was a way for you to live off of just doing that, it would really, really change things, because people like me or Stan or other people could just crank out content all the time. But we can't do that because there's no way for us to pay our bills.
Well, don't
Yeah,
you...
no, and it's the same for me personally. When I think of the possibility of what would I do if even a party that I agreed with approached me saying, hey, we're gonna pay you to do content, and even if there were no strings attached in terms of them dictating what I had to say in the videos, if it was just me getting funding from a left-wing political party, I would feel extremely uncomfortable, ethically speaking, with that. The thing is, we have right-wing influencers that are getting money from right-wing billionaires to attack the system, and left-wing influencers who are not getting any money from anyone, who are trying to defend the system in a very asymmetrical way. And something like, maybe Attilia can speak more about this, but something like EU funds that would be like non-partisan funding of just influencers that are there to defend liberal democracy as a concept, and the concept of human rights and all of that, would be something that I would be in favor of, because it would make this much more viable as an option, rather than having to shill for either capitalist or just like billionaire corporations who want me to sell things that I just do not believe in and would feel very compromised to do, or political parties that would compromise my independence as a journalist, basically.
Yeah, indeed,
I
but
mean-
it's also not a necessarily viable solution. The EU is offering operating grants to non-profit organizations to support their activity, but they come like, some of them come like every 5 years, and then you have to go through this application. It's like a whole thing. You have to fill in a document to submit with like your plan and whatever. You get a grade, and based on that, you get the money for 5 years. But if you miss the deadline, or if you miss the chance, or if you don't, it's not like a rolling basis where you can apply for funding and you started the project. However, there are things there are smaller grants that the EU puts out, and usually they offer small grants, and for those they don't require a lot of reporting, because it's small amounts. So for example, you want to start a blog or a podcast or something, you could potentially find one of those grants and apply for, like, I don't know, give me 5,000 euros to buy a laptop, pay for Premiere Pro or something, and start a channel, to do education on the EU. You could find stuff like that, but you have to always like smell them, check the websites all the time.
Yeah. I was applying for journalism grants through the EU, and when I thought it was confirmed, it turned out that, oh wait, your YouTube channel? No, sorry, this grant was only for proper journalism outlets and not for YouTube channels, so we have to cancel the grant or something like that. It was just very frustrating.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things I was kicking around is, like I get where you're at, Stan, but I think, if I so on my Patreon, for example, I have a €50 a month option, and this is mainly the idea is that I want trade unions or like local political parties to subscribe to that as a sort of like, not public or civil society donor or corporate donor, like same equivalent.
I'm sorry, do you know who runs unions? If I could get even a modicum... This is the thing. A lot of people who, at least in Eastern European, runs unions, homie can be my grandpa. Like, I have met the head of the union I'm a part of. First of all, he's corrupt. But, hey, it's Bulgaria. Everything is corrupt. I think my cats are corrupt at this point. But he genuinely doesn't know. Because we were talking, like, I went to, like, meet some people from the union. Because we talked with Stefan, is like, we need better communication, because Bulgarian law says when you start a job, your employer has to offer you, these are the options to join a union. They cannot not do that. They haven't been doing it for about 15 years. The Bulgarian employers just like, union, the fuck is a union? And just not doing it. And we were talking about how we communicate better with people, and they're like, we're gonna print more leaflets. Bro, nobody reads leaflets anymore. Like, and they put the leaflets, like, I don't know how it is in your countries, but in Bulgaria, usually the local supermarket prints a bunch of like these and pays somebody to send, like, leave a stack at 20 at the front door of your building, and they put a leaflet of the union on top of that. Like, I'm not reading it. It's fucking kindling in case I have a furnace to set on fire. Like, dude, nobody checks that. Nobody goes for a leaflet with a union logo on it. No, nobody goes, damn, I am bored today, I'm gonna read the union leaflet.
I will give you a very big counter argument of a leaflet that actually got a lot of publicity recently, and that's the AfD leaflet with the Hitler mustache.
Sorry, next time I'm gonna ask the union to get a leaflet with me like this and be like, you should probably join a union.
I don't know if you saw that one, Attilia. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about.
No.
Oh, you saved yourself some brain
so there was a flyer by the AfD where on one side.
Yes. Yeah. And when you put it into light, it looks exactly like yeah.
Yes, the window on the house on one side of the thing becomes the Hitler mustache on the face of Alice Weidel on the other side of the leaflet.
Oh,
which
they hadn't seen that.
I said that is genius advertising if you're a Nazi, but like I can't even be mad about that because of how fucking brilliant it is to actually use the leaflet formats in a way that works that you can't do online.
I want to...
initially, I thought that you're gonna say that the leaflet that got a lot of attention was the deportation ticket.
Oh yeah,
a lot of attention. So apparently they're doing leaflets right.
I guess, my bad. Sorry, Jakub brought up in chat. Finnish unions are funny. They're extremely corrupt, but also force keeping our welfare state somewhat intact. Yeah, Jakub, that's the thing about the unions. Even in Bulgaria, unions are incredibly corrupt. Twice I have ended up in an argument with like my employer at the sheer mention that I am a member of a union and no, you should like call the union to address this. Both times, instant resolution in my favor. Like, again, I can tell you that the union is corrupt. I can tell you which union supports which party, which is illegal by Bulgarian law. And yet, the second an employer learns that you're unionized, they go, whoop, our bad, sorry, ooh, don't sue us. Because in Bulgaria, if a union sues you, I am buying your company with the money you're gonna pay me afterwards. It's like, always, unions is such a weird thing, but guys, we need them.
Yeah, I think it's also important to remember, like, a lot of these organizations are hollowed out, so the remaining membership becomes easily very corrupt because they're they're kings over a very small membership that they can effectively do whatever they want. And most of the time they're like really old, been there for a very long time. There's no competition, no one's calling them out. So if you want to change things, if you're angry with those institutions, you got to join them, you got to get your friends to join them, and you got to kick some people out of their officer positions. And that's the only way you make change. Like hoping like some person with extreme power who's never faced like an internal election in a decade and expecting they change the way they're going to operate, that's not going to happen. Like that's the relationship between a lord and a peasant. That's not a relationship in a republic. And one thing to just like add on to like this communications problem which I do just frankly never see discussed enough. The right literally has other social media networks that are exclusively theirs. Like, we are so fundamentally, like, broken as, like, a left ideology. Like, we have no left Rumble, there's no left Gab, there's no left all these other things. Like, that is how crazy the distance is.
You could argue Twitch, kind of, to some extent.
For Nazis?
But
for Nazis, you mean?
No, like, for super pro-Palestine leftists.
No way.
Sorry,
like,
Hassan.
Like, Twitch is, like, really right-wing overall. Like, we're talking Asmongold and a bunch of other like,
fair enough, yeah.
people.
Well, let's say that Hassan definitely gets some preferential treatment on Twitch because some of the stuff that he's pulled on Twitch would have gotten anyone else banned.
It always
but they literally gave Hassan a birthday cake. Like there is a huge ideological overlap between the Twitch leadership and Hassan. It's just a weird interaction there.
But I think that's not the same thing. Like Twitch was not designed from the bottom up as literally a left social media website.
Yeah,
like,
I agree.
Gab was designed specifically as Twitter for Nazis. Like Rumble was created as YouTube for Nazis. Like that's the whole reason Diatra. Like none of us in this group would make accounts on these platforms because they're so explicitly right wing. Like, you know, this is so different. Like even if Twitch was
Yeah,
like
no, for sure.
all
Like,
the people that owned it were left wing, all that stuff, they're still like trying to throw a mainstream company with a mainstream audience and get both of those sides.
Your larger point definitely stands. Yeah.
Well, let me.
By the way, I finally managed to get home and check, and on my side the stream has been public this entire time, not unlisted.
Well, so I guess it's just a bug in the thing we're using. It happens.
Okay.
I would just like to talk a bit about Merz and
Yeah,
Europe.
please. We've been riffing.
Sorry, we got really.
Unfortunately, we're used to this like interaction with each other, and you haven't gotten into the.
No, definitely. Look, so what's your opinion on it? I would like to know as well what you think, because he's been portraying himself as more European than Scholz has been, and it's true that first of all, like I never really found Scholz super charismatic, and no one I think has ever found him. And there was this he had big shoes to fill after Merkel, and it was clear that he's not going to become the next European like leader. And I think that now also with Macron kind of like coming out of his office and his chances in 2027 are quite bad. We have a power vacuum. And I think he is on track to filling it, and he wants to fill it. And I think he fits. So the picture that I painted about Europe being very member states focused from now on and so on, he does fit the narrative. And I think that's why von der Leyen also finds him as a bit of a threat, because she would like to keep the power in Brussels, whereas he will give in to this new order, let's say, of the EU, where he's going to be able to have the deals done with the council. Because look at this. There's another point that I'm trying to make. It's like the issues that we're gonna face in the EU right now are gonna be member states' competency. Like the EU has competency in defense to the extent that it is about procuring the weapons. Then when it comes to foreign policy, it's trying to do some stuff, but it's member states' competency. And of course, this is also very debatable, because it doesn't have competency. The EU doesn't have competency over health, but when COVID came, we found a way to have a gentleman's agreement, and in this way we kind of gave the EU competence. We could, and it would be the ideal scenario that we make a foreign policy for ourselves and we actually coordinate in terms of defense. But it's not a mandate that the EU inherently has. It's a mandate that will be created by having member states align and willingly collaborate, but in the council, not coming from the commission. It will be a council's deal done behind closed doors. And Merz, now he's a Christian Democrat. He's leaning very conservative. He will make friends with Meloni. He will be able to appease her. He will make friends with Sanchez and whatever, because he's still pro-European. With Macron also as well. So I think for him, the challenge is fixing what he has to fix in Germany. It's like getting people to afford their living, because if he fixes the mess, let's say, in Germany, then he gets a break, which is something that Scholz didn't get. He had so much ongoing trouble in Germany with the economy, with the coalition, with infighting, that he never got the chance to go and look at Europe. And I mean, it makes sense to take care of your own house and then look at the garden, But if he manages to fix it, situation in Germany, maybe he'll get the chance to become the person you call when you call Europe. And I think he's aiming for that. And von der Leyen, when she's back from she's gonna be shaking about this.
Yeah, but
that's my
we're
hunch.
relying on a conservative politician to fix economic issues, and I don't want to bother anybody that doesn't tend to work out.
I think the only pushback I'd have on that theory is like Manfred Weber is also there at the arch controller of the CDU-CSU world. And I'm sorry, he's not moving over for Friedrich. That's not happening. So at the end of the day, I think if there wasn't just a bunch of other CDU people controlling the commission right now in the EPP, maybe, yeah, but yeah, I just don't see anyone else moving around, and there's just a bunch of other CDU power players.
But Weber is not gonna be in the council meetings.
But they're gonna shoot him.
Yeah, but this goes down to internal CDU-CSU politics, and that's the pettiness of it, right? It's it doesn't really matter if he's not in the room. It's he can mess up Merz's life back home, and that is what he has historically done for people. So it's more that is what Weber likes to do. He even did it to Ursula. I mean, that's his whole thing.
I'll be absolutely happy because I mean, the more time he spends like messing up everything for Merz, the less time he has to mess up the Green Deal. So hopefully, he goes and focuses on that.
Yeah, but like Weber is such a like he's kind of like having political gonorrhea. This motherfucker just doesn't go away. Like okay, so that might be too much, but like you know there is a saying in Bulgaria, this motherfucker wants to be the spice on every meal. No, that doesn't translate well. But he's just like everywhere. You can get rid. It's like having a very annoying Chihuahua stapled to your leg. You have to go all the fucking time. So I don't know. Like yeah, he will be annoying, but I assume that Merz has foresaw this because my man has not stopped being annoying ever. So what's new? But I don't know.
No, to me,
I have no way of knowing.
to go back to the point that Attilia was making at the very, very start of the conversation when she joined, is if Merz manages to play his cards well and get back in a quasi-Merkel like leader of the EU position, to me, first of all, like I'm not sure how likely that is, but that would kind of be the dying gasp of the old system because it doesn't really change the broader trend of things, which is exactly what Ottilia was saying when she came on, which is that right now we're seeing the complete death and the complete the power vacuum that is slowly installing itself in the center in centrist politics, and you know with everything that is changing right now from the U.S. pulling out of the EU and pulling out of it kind of pulling NATO apart in a lot of ways, what we're seeing with kind of all of the old political traditions that are really being challenged at the moment, and the newer generations that are not accepting any of the status quo. I feel like it's kind of shuffling the chairs on the deck of the Titanic at this point.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. But okay, well, I'm gonna leave you with this question hanging. I'm gonna go check with my team and see what our reaction was at EUNU, and I'm just dropping our Instagram in the chat on YouTube in case you it's an inactive link. There we go. I have an experience with this. But head over to EUNU on Instagram and catch us there. And thank you guys for having me. Have fun, and hopefully the polls are not, the results are not getting.
I think the results are not moving. I've checked a few times in the last half an hour.
Our next big numbers are in 10 minutes.
I mean, I guess that's what we're gonna find
I'm
out.
hoping they stabilize at least around here, because I don't want to see it going worse.
Yeah, I think we're going to take that opportunity to wind down the stream anyway, because I think we were already considering winding it down before you joined, and you kind of like boosted the energy up back into the stream when you came in. So yeah, I think if you're going to leave, I think it'll be the time for the rest of us to bow out as well, no?
Yeah, well, I guess
that
closing
sounds like a good
remarks. Anybody?
Yeah.
Okay, guys, it's not the Romanian elections, not the Moldovan elections. We can sleep tonight, and the result will be the same tomorrow. It's amazing to be able to sleep on election night and not put a timer every hour to wake up and check the polls. So we kind of know who won. It's okay.
Yeah, it is funny. Like the last time we did an election stream on this channel was the U.S. election, where we literally stayed up all night for like a 10-hour stream that ended at 7 in the morning, and it is so weird to like start stream at 6 p.m. Go okay, the exit polling is out, and literally for the next 5 hours the exit polling does not move. It stays within 1 percentage point for every single party. Yeah.
And we don't end the stream depressed and dejected, like
Yeah, that is nice.
Tomorrow we'll wake up.
That's a good change for sure.
And things would not be imploding, which is wow, that's fucking new feeling. Did not know that this is where the bar is. But that's where we've said it.
For pulling that off, I think it's impressive to do like a white night for this. There were plenty of watch parties actually in Brussels. Like people, they went to pubs. They were like drinks and breakfast deals for this kind of stuff. So it was quite an event. But I skipped. We had the elections breakfast. Actually.
Oh, exciting.
Like, getting some sleep, but also seeing.
That must have been a depressing as fuck breakfast.
Yeah,
Holy
like,
shit.
you see, you
the
slept.
amount of food we had to ingest to get over that.
Look, I say our strategy was better because you slept and then you had to spend the whole day depressed. We got depressed, then we went to bed. At least the sleep helped us recover a little bit. Although I did spend 3 days after that election just not being very interactive because, oh man.
I remember 2016 election night where I went to bed when it wasn't official yet, but it was starting to be clear that Trump had won. And like this was 2016. It was not seen as possible that Trump would win. So I remember just like going to bed in complete disbelief, and I woke up the next morning and I thought it was a nightmare. I thought I woke up with like, I'm gonna check the news and it's gonna be all fine and Hillary won the election. And then I checked and I was like, nope, it was definitely not a nightmare. It was definitely not all in my head. And that actually happened. And it was wild to actually wake up and not know if I remembered the previous night correctly or not.
To be honest, I think that moment was quite, it's quite stable in many people's memories, and it might be for some people of my generation at least, a very like catalyst moment for when they became conscious of politics and of like, oh, stuff can go really bad if we don't take care of this or if we take democracy for granted. And but whatever, here we are. So
like for me, it was definitely a moment to go from shit stirring American politics to oh no. Because I had a watch party with like 3 of my friends, and the most shenanigan inducing person in my friends group was like, Trump is gonna win, I bet you this much that's gonna happen. And it was a drinking bet. And then at 5 a.m. they announced he won, and I only was sad I had to drink a lot. And that's how my entry into political learning began, with spending 2 hours in the toilet throwing up. But hey, that is life.
But we've learned from there, and we learned that these people. I mean, this is I'm quoting a colleague of mine who's always saying this. Look, the worst mistake we can make is to think that they're idiots, in the sense of no, we know they're idiots. But the worst mistake we can make is to think that they're idiots in the sense that they don't know what they're doing. They know perfectly what they're doing. So we should take them seriously. They're not just like disrupting. They're not just like calling things as they are. They know perfectly what they're doing. They're not idiots in that sense. The moment we realized it was 2016 because we never took him seriously, and now look.
I'll use this moment to apologize to everybody who doesn't work or interact with the IT industry, that a bunch of buzzwords that meant to be used only on investors from Saudi Arabia to get you to fund your app have now become political terms. My apologies. We did an oopsie on that one, lads. I have nothing else to say.
Yeah, no, something that was really frustrating to me a couple of days ago is I posted that video about the Steve Bannon salute, and controversial opinion. I said yes, I think we need to start calling this a spade based on the reaction in the room to that salute. I think we can start saying that the Republican Party is a Nazi party at this point.
Yeah, I saw that, and 100% agree.
Guys, they tried to overthrow democracy years ago. We're way past that.
No, but like...
Yeah, but the most frustrating comment that I got was when I went on to say that therefore half of the American population is either Nazi supporters or people who choose to ignore the fact that they voted for a Nazi party. And some people said in the comments, like, how dare you say that half the U.S. population supports Trump? Only 1/3 of them supports Trump because 1/3 of the population didn't vote. And you are besmirching the good name of the people who refused to vote in the last election. And I'm like, dude,
yeah, we have a word
when
for
we're
them.
literally
It's called collaborationist.
Everyone is screaming with their hair on fire saying, hey, it is fascism or democracy. That is what the vote is about, even if you don't like the Democratic candidate. And I'm saying small d democratic as in supports the survival of democracy in the world. If you don't like that candidate, I don't give a shit, because the other option is fascism. And when it's that clear cut and that obvious and that explicit in their rhetoric, not voting is not an option. Not voting is a vote for fascism.
I mean, also, I can't stop being angry that they didn't understand that as the leader, the most powerful country in the world, the one that has a dramatic effect on everyone else, that they didn't understand that them making that choice doesn't just affect them. They're not from Luxembourg. They're not from some small country. What happens in America radically affects
Shade to Luxembourg, man.
I love Luxembourg. Luxembourg people know.
Shade to Luxembourg.
But like, this isn't a tiny country where like the election causes a global shock around the world, and that time their president speaks, it causes a global crisis. Like that is this is like the frustration. Like, there is a collective responsibility in democracy, whether you vote, whether you don't vote. It doesn't matter who you vote for, because we're all bound together. That's the whole concept of the democracy. So you are not having some moral out by not voting. You are still attached to the moral outcome, whether or not you supported it in the first place, because that is the game. And democracy isn't just the voting, it's everything that happens between and everything beyond that. And yeah, it just makes me very sad. It's very frustrating. And yeah, sorry, that big downer.
Well, let's.
Yeah, no,
let's,
I think on that note we can call it a day.
okay.
Yeah, did you want to add something else?
Yeah, as I'm the one controlling the stream, I would like to point out two
Fair
things.
enough.
First of all, US elections are too important to be left in the hands of Americans, I think is the conclusion we have to make here. and the second thing is, I am sorry, but I am going to feed my European superiority complex. At least Germany didn't explode tonight. So,
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
we get a dub on this one. It's a shitty dub, I will admit. It's the equivalent of winning by referee, but hey, you know, we get to live another day. We'll do this again in 6 months in France, and hopefully somebody
I
will
mean-
ship me Marie Le Pen's wallpapers, because I want
It is-
them, and that's that.
It is so weird to be relieved at the result that we have right now of the AfD getting 20% and being the second biggest party. That this is the world that we live at, where that is a reassuring result, you know. But yeah, no, I guess that'll be it. If the content creators in the stream want to plug their channel, plug their links again before leaving. I also wanted to say that Tryon, thank you so much for handling the technical side of thing while I was running around town. This doesn't really concern you, but it concerns the other two guests, which is that I will send a link to download the entire stream if you want it, and if we can, anyone who wants to like cut shorts or reels from the stream and tag the other people as co-creators, that would be a nice teamwork to put out more content from this stream on our various social media platforms.
Amazing.
Sounds good.
All right, well, have a lovely night, everyone. I'm going to press the button now, so see you around.
Okay.
Bye.
Last plugs for everyone. For if you still wanna plug your content.
Okay.
Follow Rota Media. Give me money on Patreon.
You and there's, I think we have a donation link somewhere, please.
Okay.
And barely info dumps. The second channel where we usually stream when it's not like big event streams. Just posted a message in chat. Go subscribe to that channel as well.
I guess that's my plug, as I tend to appear there. Invited or not, I have the fucking access now. Anyway, good night, everybody.
Yeah. Good night. Thanks for.